A young man opens his eyes and doesn't understand where he is. This place resembles heaven, but what exactly is he doing here? The boy clearly remembers that he had just been sitting and enjoying a cartoon series that was included in the TV program on Sundays. Suddenly, an unknown voice pushes the main character out of his thoughts, calling the boy's name, Kazuhaya Suta. The young man turns around and looks at the girl with long golden hair in complete bewilderment. He involuntarily says that he feels like he is in heaven. Before him appears an unusually beautiful girl with straight blonde hair and blue eyes, and also in very revealing clothes. The young man turned red, and in his thoughts he could not understand where such a beautiful cosplayer came from in this place. He scratched the back of his head with his hand, apologized to the girl with an awkward smile, and asked her name. With one eye closed, the lady asked the hero if he had really come here to chat. She also answered his previous question that he was really in heaven now. After careful investigation, it was decided to send Kazehai Sotou to another world. The main character was simply dumbfounded and could not utter a word. The girl was happy with his question, which he had not asked. Placing her hand on her chest, she replied that she was the goddess of beauty named Aphrodite. It was she who would send the young man to another world, but first she needed to instruct him. The young man asked for a minute and then said that he did not understand anything she said. Sighing, the girl spread her arms out to the sides and said that everything would be fine, because she was here precisely to ensure that such scum as he did not die the most miserable death in the new world. She points her finger at him and loudly declares that this is why the guy should stop looking at her with his eyes and listen carefully. First, he should imagine the player's profile in front of him. The young man's thoughts are fixated on the insult to the girl. He was, of course, hurt, but he would act like a mature and reserved person. He closed his eyes and imagined the player's profile, and suddenly a black screen appeared in front of him. This screen displayed several characteristics of the hero. The girl laughed at the fact that the young man was a monster tamer by profession. She also said that the hero would be potty training slugs. Kazuhaya Suta looked at the goddess's reaction in surprise and did not understand what she was talking about. The girl continued to explain. She said that the main character would be sent to the world of Athlgate. The universe there is arranged in such a way that when a person is born, the heavens give him a purpose and a life path. With all this, the Monster Tamer is the most useless and unnecessary purpose. She also stated that this profession suits the hero, since in another world he was a nerd who only played computer games and watched anime. His profession is absolutely useless, just like him. The protagonist tried to digest everything that had been said. He was fixated on the fact that the girl was not who she claimed to be because she looked so nice, but in reality she was a very bad person. He also wondered why he was a nerd when he was a diligent high school student. He even arrived in heaven in his school uniform. He also finds it hard to believe that he is now in heaven and that a goddess is standing before him. He then looks down to where his player profile is still located. He is interested in his skill, Ball Capsule. As soon as he asked himself this question, another window appeared in front of him. He realized that he only needed to think about something, and the details would appear on the panel themselves. The window said that the ball capsule allowed him to capture monsters and use them for his own purposes. The young man thought about how to get this capsule. He realized that the profile opened when he focused on it. He decided to try it with the capsule. Suddenly, a spherical object with bulges appeared in front of him. It was a spherical capsule. He took it in his hands and was happy because everything worked out. Aphrodite clarified that the ball capsule is a basic item for monster tamers. If you hit a monster directly with it, there is a chance to take possession of it. Bending down, the girl said that she would now send the hero to his new world. The young man asked her to wait because he wanted to conduct an experiment. The girl agreed to wait. Suddenly, the hero swung his sword and said that the goddess herself was to blame. And then he threw the ball capsule straight at the girl. She was very surprised by this, and suddenly the ball hit her right in the head. The girl grabbed the capsule and started screaming that this item only works on monsters, so she doesn't understand why the young man threw this ball at her. Suddenly, the spherical capsule began to shine very brightly. And suddenly, she began to pull the goddess's body inside. With a scream, the girl disappeared, and the capsule headed straight into the hands of the main character. He looked inside the capsule and saw Aphrodite, who was the size of an eraser. Suddenly, another window with information appeared in front of the young man, where the indicators of the one who got into the spherical capsule were indicated. The young man was surprised by the very high indicators and realized that there was definitely a goddess inside. The girl began to pound hard on the walls of the capsule and screamed that this situation was not funny at all. The girl asked the young man to let her out, because what was happening was a crime against the gods. The young man scratched his head and said that he just really wanted to try it because he couldn't resist. He also doesn't understand what to do next. The girl, sitting on his knees, starts crying and politely asks the young man to let her out. To be honest, the hero, looking at the clouds, still did not understand what was happening and where he was. However, no matter what happens, the goddess is with him now. He raises his hand with the capsule straight above him and smiles. The protagonist was suddenly summoned to heaven and made a monster tamer without asking his opinion. The first thing he did was catch a goddess with his new skill, the ball capsule. Leaning his hand on his hip and looking at the capsule, the young man wondered what he should do next. Suddenly, an unknown white beam appears above the young man. The young man was frightened and did not understand what was happening because everything around him disappeared. Opening his eyes, he sees himself in an unknown place where everything around is very strange. He looks up at the sky and sees that the sun is blue and the flowers have strange eyes in their centers. The young man realized that he was definitely not sleeping, which meant that he really had ended up in another world. So, first the young man needs to get to the nearest city. He saw a path and realized that sooner or later it should lead him to the city. Suddenly, he saw a creature that looked like a small man. The young man realized that it was a monster disguised as a goblin. The guy began to think about what he should do and whether he should attack him. As is often the case in video games, the player's first opponent is a goblin, so this is a chance for the young man to try out the combat system. He also thought that monster tamers should not fight the enemy themselves. He looks into the capsule and sees the goddess Aphrodite there. She, in tears, mutters under her breath about how this could have happened, that she ended up in such a situation. The young man thought that, as he thought, the girl had not disappeared anywhere. He tries to figure out how to summon the goddess. The young man thinks that he should try to focus on it, like he tried the previous times. Concentrating on the goddess, the young man calls upon Aphrodite. Suddenly, the spherical capsule begins to glow. The goddess Aphrodite appears right in front of the hero. Stuttering, the hero smiles an innocent smile and greets the girl, saying that he is glad to meet her again. Opening her eyes, the girl realized that she was outside the capsule. Crying, she realized that she had managed to get out, but suddenly confusion gave way to anger at the young man. She lunges at the hero who summoned her and accuses him in the name of all that is holy of holies that he put her in the capsule. The young man smiles awkwardly and apologizes to her, saying that she made him a little angry. The girl starts to threaten him. Suddenly, the young man asks the girl to be quiet and not to scream because the monster can hear them. The girl turns questioningly and looks at the monster, but it turns out to be an ordinary goblin who was chasing a small fluffy rabbit. Sotou repeats the girl's words and asks her if she can handle him. The girl says that she can easily do it because she is a goddess. The young man asks if Aphrodite can drive him away. The girl says that it seems there is no other way out, but after all this, she expects an explanation from the young man. The girl approaches the monster from behind, raises her hand up and calls the goblin a pathetic creature. She announces that the goblin is being addressed by the real goddess of beauty, Aphrodite, who calls for heavenly punishment to be carried out. Sotou is looking forward to what might happen, since Aphrodite is a goddess after all. The goddess calls upon the divine wind, and Sotou asks to smear this goblin on the ground. However, nothing happens, and Sotou realizes that something has gone wrong. Aphrodite tries to call upon the divine wind several more times, but nothing happens. Meanwhile, the goblin begins to attack. The girl tries to run away, but the goblin grabs her by the hem of her clothes, and the goddess falls to the ground, and then asks Sotou to help her. The hero understands that he got a useless and defective goddess. However, he could not even imagine that goddesses ask for help. In his thoughts, he recalls the goddess's words that monster tamers can only potty train slugs, but there is no other way out, because he has nothing to lose. He runs up and kicks the goblin in the face with all his might. The goblin lost consciousness. Sotou looked at him in surprise and thought that it was too easy. The victory was very easy, and in this way he protected the goddess. The goblin lay unconscious. Sotou held his ball capsule in his hands, and Aphrodite did not understand why all this was happening to her. Sotou turns his attention to the goddess and tells her, shortening her name to Afro, not to lose heart. The girl attacks the hero and says that she is not Afro. Suda apologizes to her. She closes one eye and says that if Suda wants to call her by her name, he can just call her D. She is, of course, against such familiarity, but it is better than Afro. Changing the subject, Suta asks why the goddess couldn't deal with that goblin. The girl awkwardly scratches her cheek and says that she completely forgot that the powers of the gods only work in heaven. Nei also adds that her magic turns all living things into ashes, and if she were in heaven, she would prove it to Suda. The young man, in turn, thought that goblins are really such dangerous opponents. Aphrodite then asks Suda if he has figured out his abilities and asks to look at her profile. She looks at her profile and says that everything except vitality has decreased. She moves her fist to her mouth and says that she guessed that this is how it would be, because the reason lies in Suda's divine gift. He looks at his profile, where his divine gift, absolute dominance, is highlighted. The boy then asks how a divine gift is different from a skill. The girl explains that a skill is something that a hero acquires through training and experience, while a divine gift is given at birth. However, a divine gift may not be given from birth. The fact is that throughout history, only the great, or rather a limited circle of people, were given this gift. Suda decides to look into the details of his divine gift, absolute domination, and it is stated there that this gift is received by those who have the ability to subjugate living beings. The girl asks if the boy saw the details of his skill. She then starts screaming and says if Suda knows why she said the hero's gift was complete trash, because the ball capsule's limitation of only being able to capture monsters is no longer in effect. The young man says that on the contrary, it means that with the help of the ball capsule, he can capture people and the like too. The girl sighs and says that, of course, because with the goddess it all worked. The young man looks at his hand and thinks that when he was given the abilities, there was a bug, and there is no other explanation. In other words, now he is a tamer of monsters and people. Suddenly, Aphrodite shudders and asks Suda to urgently look at his profile because something is happening to it. All the hero's characteristics have increased dramatically. The young man turns to the goddess and asks what kind of goblin can give so much experience. The girl screams that such a thing simply cannot be. The young man makes a serious face and suggests that this could have happened because of Aphrodite. The girl is amazed. She puts her hands on her hips and says that Suda has such a level thanks to her because he caught her, the goddess of beauty Aphrodite, in a ball capsule. That's why he was given so much experience. Suda notices the girl's smug face. She continues that Suta's unprecedented achievements are actually her secret patronage of the boy. She feels that at this rate they will quickly be able to return to their own worlds. The young man looked at the goddess questioningly and asked her what she was talking about. The girl realized that she had forgotten to explain it to him. She says that Suda was called here to save this world. The young man was very surprised. The prophecy says that the return of a powerful demon is near, and until Suda destroys it, he will not be able to return to his home. For this purpose, the goddess of beauty Aphrodite called Suda into this world. The young man was dumbfounded. He did not understand why he was only learning about this now. He puts his hand on his face and asks if the demon is not there yet, and if that is true. The goddess replies that it is true, but the problem is that sooner or later he will rise again. That is why the gods decided to prepare for his return in advance. They send people from Earth to this world, like Suda, and make them heroes in this world. The young man understands that there were others besides him. He says that it turns out that when he destroys the demon, he will be returned to Earth, and he will lose his abilities. The girl replies that the abilities will remain with him, because if a person was given some abilities, the gods cannot take them away. Suda realizes that he will be able to take all the creatures he catches in the ball capsule back to Earth. Aphrodite replies that this is true, but the gods will watch over the hero so that he does not do anything stupid in his world. The hero looks at his palm, then clenches it into a fist and says that he understands everything. He now knows what he will do in this world. The goddess begins to glow and asks the hero if he is really so determined to defeat the powerful demon. The young man replies that no, it is not so. The girl is surprised and asks if the boy is really one of those who do not want to return to Earth. Suda says that of course he wants to return home. However, his goal in this world is to use dominance to gather as many beautiful girls as possible and take them to Earth with him. He pulls out a spherical capsule straight ahead of him. The goddess is surprised by this. And the young man clarifies that the group of foreign girls is an incomparable, high-flying, and unattainable vulture, hovering in the voluptuous ether of male fantasies. For this, he is willing to live in a world without anime, games, or even air conditioning. He declares that he will destroy the powerful demon, but before that, he will gather the perfect group of girls. The goddess jumps up from her seat and shouts that in the name of all the saints, she will not allow this to happen, because she is a goddess and she can no longer remain silent. The young man asks if the girl is sure of her words. He says that he will not kill the powerful demon until he has gathered a top-notch group of girls, and if he does not kill the powerful demon, then Aphrodite will not be able to return to her heaven. He also asks the confused goddess if she wants to go to her heaven. That is why he offers her to make a deal with him. The girl tensely closes her eyes and says that it seems she has no other choice, and, although she is not pleased, she will help him gather a group of foreign girls. The young man beamed with joy and said that he knew that the girl would agree to help him. They shake hands with each other, because from that moment on, Sotou and the goddess began a plan called the Group of Foreign Girls. As he walks along the path, Sotou thanks Aphrodite, as she is a goddess and will give him a lot of experience. However, he wonders why all indicators, except intelligence, have not increased much. Aphrodite replies that there is nothing to be done about it, since tamers usually have low stats. Sotou is surprised by this and realizes that the problem is in the class itself. Suddenly, he notices that something new has appeared in the skills, namely, a skill called Piercing Eye, which appeared with an increase in level and the fulfilled condition of an intelligence level above 2000. Suddenly, the goddess Aphrodite began to shout Soutou's name. She looks at the hero and points her hand into the bushes, from where another goblin emerged. The young man looks at the little goblin that comes out and realizes that now is the time to use the Piercing Eye. Suddenly, a panel of his skills and parameters appeared next to the goblin. While he was thinking about the convenience of this skill, Aphrodite was shouting for Sotou to deal with the goblin, and that she would do anything to make the boy take out the monster. Holding a ball capsule, the boy asks the girl that if he captures the monster instead of killing it, he will get less experience. The girl shouts that he will get the same amount of experience. The boy smiles and says that he is ready to begin. An hour passed. There were goblins inside the ball capsule who had even lit a fire. Sotou says that he has already caught 18 goblins. However, even with such a catch, he did not scrape together a new level, and it seems that the goblins are not particularly valuable. Aphrodite says that she is very tired. Sotou looks at the capsule and says that it is simply a miracle. It looks very small, but it was able to hold so many goblins. He looks closer and sees that it is quite spacious inside. He turns to the goddess and asks her if there is a limit to the number of subordinate beings. The girl replies that of course there is. She clarifies that initially, the young man can subjugate only one monster, and for each subsequent monster, 10 more levels are required. The young man realizes that he can now gather 56 creatures. They move on. Suddenly, Sotou imagines a picture of himself sitting on a throne, surrounded by an army of goblins. The young man does not understand how this could be allowed, because his skill is literally one step away from being a cheating skill. If you think about it, any battles are now very easy for the young man, because despite the fact that the tamer should be very weak, Sotou somehow killed the goblin with just one kick. It turns out that with his level, at least in this clearing, he is one of the strongest warriors. He is distracted from his thoughts and asks about another question, namely, whether he will have tamed goblins. The young man thinks that they probably did not like him kicking them and then putting them in a capsule. The goddess replies that the young man should not worry, because no creature that Sotou caught with his capsule can disobey him. Sotou looked at Aphrodite and realized that even though he didn't care about the feelings of others, this was too much. After all, if all this is true, then he can tirelessly have fun with the goddess as he pleases. Clearing his throat and clearing his thoughts, Sotou says he wants to conduct an experiment. He asks the girl to spin around. The girl does not understand what he wants and says that such a great goddess will not obey his orders. However, suddenly the girl's body begins to spin on the spot. Aphrodite screams and asks what is happening to her body. Sotou looked at what was happening in surprise. When the girl stopped, she began to scream that the hero was a fool, and that he was doing this in the name of all the saints. The boy scratches his head and says that it was a terrible order, but he needed to make sure that the skill worked. Aphrodite blushed and said that if the boy wanted to give her an order like that, he could just ask. She then says that she hopes that the young man had no intention of ordering her to do anything bad. The young man is surprised and asks the girl how she knew about this. He also asks if the gods really have the ability of clairvoyance. The goddess, blushing, puts her hands on her chest and begins to squeal. Then she asks the young man to listen and says that she has agreed to help him gather a group of foreign girls, but she does not intend to become his concubine. The boy asks why, because what if she likes it? The girl screams and says that the boy is saying that. She hits him in the face. Sotou thinks that he was wrong, because Aphrodite is, after all, the goddess of beauty, and besides, they are now kind of friends. But what kind of friend will Sotou be now if he forcibly drags Aphrodite into his group of foreign girls? Rubbing his cheek, he realizes that he got a little carried away, so he will need to think about it. Aphrodite and Sotou slowly move along the road. The girl asks wearily how much longer it is to the city. Suddenly, the goddess turns to the young man. She says she wants him to carry her in the capsule. The young man asks that, as far as he remembers, the goddess did not like being in it, but the girl replies that it is more comfortable to move around in the ball because it is impossible to get hungry inside and there is no stress. In addition, the capsule can restore all of its parameters, and it has a healing effect. Sotou is surprised by the capsule's power. Aphrodite adds that the capsule has a protective effect against the curse imposed on the gods who descended to Earth. Sotou is surprised and asks about the curse the girl spoke of. She said that the powers of the gods only work in heaven. Aphrodite agrees and adds that in the ball capsule there is no need to stomp your feet, and when they get to the city, Sotou will call her. Having moved into the capsule, the girl asks the boy to be careful with the ball. Sotou looks at the capsule and calls the goddess very cunning. After some time, Aphrodite is sleeping soundly, and Sotou is trying to wake her up. Opening her eyes, the girl sees a huge number of goblins in front of her. In a moment, she moves out of the capsule and asks Sotou if he really picked up more goblins. The young man replies that everything is true, and he caught them along the way on the road. Now in the capsule in total, there are about 37 creatures. Then, he distracts the goddess's attention and asks her to look away. They reach the city. After reading the signpost, Sotou learns that the city is called the Trading City of St. Bell. He is then surprised, as he had no problem reading the unfamiliar characters. Aphrodite says that Sotou understood everything correctly, because all those displaced from another world are given the ability to understand and read the local language. Then the boy looks around and sees a goblin carrying a box, orcs working, and is surprised that monsters are used as labor. Then he sees a stone turtle, which is also working. He asks the goddess if the turtle is a means of transportation, to which the girl replies that it is possible. Aphrodite says that Sotou is very much mistaken if he thinks that, since the girl is a goddess, she should know about everything, because for the first time in so many years, she came down to Earth. The young man answers her understandingly, but thinks to himself what all this pathos was about and whether this goddess can do anything at all. He decides to take another look at her profile. He sees that, except for the vitality, everything is very sad. Then he asks the girl about why her skill bar says unknown. The girl says that because of the concealment skill, they are not visible. She clarifies that thanks to it, others cannot see her skills. This is the skill she has. Sotou clenches her fist and says that she must be a goddess for having such an amazing skill. Then he thinks that even though the girl is useless, she is still a goddess. If Aphrodite has enough useful skills, they will all live happily together here. The girl giggles. Then Sotou asks why the girl suddenly started looking away. The girl, closing her eyes, says that due to the curse, most of her skills are blocked, so what the young man says there, his expectations are incorrect. The young man sighs and says that he expected this turn of events. He thinks that if the gods could demonstrate their power in this world, there would be no need to send foreigners here. The girl awkwardly says that she really can't use her power here, and her skills don't work here either. She asks the young man if he will leave her because she is useless. The young man turns to her silently, and the girl shudders. She rushes at him and asks for an answer. She begs him not to leave her to certain death. The girl also threatens the young man with a curse and that he will go to hell. The young man shyly screams that he will not abandon the goddess, but in return asks her to leave him alone. He understands that he should not only not take care of himself, but also of Aphrodite. First of all, you need to find a job, because for food, shelter, clothing, and also to maintain fighting forces, you need money, which means you need to go to one very important place. the young man says that if you need work in another world, you need to look for it in the Adventurers Guild. Inside the Adventurers Guild, life is in full swing, and everyone is whispering, looking at one point, namely at the couple who just entered the building. It was Aphrodite and Suda. The girl is clinging to the boy, and he does not understand what she is doing. The girl asks the young man to look back and asks him if he sees even one person who is not looking at them. The boy sighs and says that he is in a school uniform, and the girl is in a heavenly robe, so that is how they will be looked at. Everyone starts whispering because they saw an incredibly attractive girl. Suda understands that it is not about him and the girl, but only about Aphrodite's attractiveness. He decides to take matters into his own hands. Suddenly, someone greets them and asks if they are adventurers. The person who came to see her was Chloe Grice, of the Katsi family, who was 18 years old. Suda notices that she has cat ears. He looks at her with admiration, and in his thoughts calls her a beautiful foreign girl who comes to him in his dreams. He wants her in his capsule. However, behind his back, Aphrodite turns to him furiously and asks the young man what he is thinking about now. Chloe asks the couple if there's anything she can do to help them. Suda replies that they're looking for work. Chloe immediately realizes that this is their first time at the guild. The boy says that they have just arrived in this city. Chloe immediately offers them to register. She hands them a piece of paper and asks them to write their name. The boy writes the name in an unfamiliar language and realizes that he can not only read it, but also write it. After some time, he receives his first Guild Adventurer card. In the guild, the card is a very important thing, so it must be protected. Chloe says that since they are new to the guild, she must instruct them. The Adventurers Guild is an organization where adventurers complete quests, tasks received from government and private individuals. Quests can be very different from killing monsters to finding lost kittens. If adventurers have good results and high rank, they will be able to receive more quests. Suda asks Chloe what she needs to do to raise her rank. The girl smiles and says that you just need to be useful to the guild, and your rank will rise on its own. Aphrodite notes that the condition is rather vague. Suda understands that even if he successfully performs his work, but the guild administration does not like him, his career growth may be delayed forever. Chloe interrupts his thoughts and points to the guild's bulletin board. She explains that there are notices posted on the board asking for orders. Adventurers need to take their first quest, so she asks Suda to choose one that he likes. The boy stands and looks at the notice board. He marks the 3 best options. Then he turns to Chloe and asks how he will prove that he has defeated this or that monster. The girl replies that Suda will need to bring some part of the monster's body. For example, if it was a wolf, then he will need to bring a wolf's fang. Suda realizes that he would be better off making friends with any monsters he comes across, so he takes on a quest to find healing plants. The task was successfully taken. Chloe says that according to the quest brochure, newbies are entitled to a gift called a newbie's kit. Suda thanks Chloe. They head out to the guild and the boy says that this is a real guild, judging by the support for newbies alone. Then she asks where they are going and why not look near the city. Suda replies that they can do it here, but they need to find a more secluded and deeper corner. Aphrodite does not understand why. The boy explains that they will let the goblins out to gather herbs, but if anyone notices them, it will cause trouble, so Suda does not want the other adventurers to kill their fellow goblins. Aphrodite agrees with the boy. She notes that the idea is generally good, but she is tired of walking, so she asks to rest in the capsule and then moves there. Suda says that it is time for him to start. It activates the capsule, and before him appears a squad of small goblins. Suda thinks to himself that here it is, his little army of 37 goblins in the presence of one goddess. He notes that he had to work hard to gather so many goblins. He gets distracted and tells the goblins to listen to him. He shows a picture in a book and tells the goblins that they need to collect what is drawn, namely healing herbs. Once the goblins find these, they are to bring them to the roots of a nearby tree. He also tells them that if they meet anyone other than the young man, they are to run away and not engage in combat. Suda gives the order, and the goblins begin to carry out the task. He thinks he put all his energy into this speech and hopes the goblins understood him. He feels something strange, but gathering everything alone is not the best option, and he will quickly deal with an army of goblins. The little goblin began to collect herbs, but something very sinister and dark was watching him from the bushes. After a while, there was a huge pile of healing herbs lying next to the tree. Suda was praising the monsters. Most of the goblins had already returned, but the young man had not found a single plant in 2 hours of searching, and it seemed that the creature's intuition played the main role. Suda looks at the capsule and thinks that he has captured 15 more new goblins, so this can be considered a good result. He moves all the goblins back into the capsule and says that it is time to finish, but not all the goblins have returned. Suddenly, he hears some rustling in the bushes. They turned out to be angry wolves. Looking at the jaw of one of the wolves, Suda realizes that they were the ones who killed the small remaining goblins. The hero becomes very serious and says to himself that the wolves should not expect mercy. The wolves encircle the boy, and there are 5 of them. Suda tries to figure out what his chances are with this arrangement, but he's still outnumbered. He squeezed the ball capsule. He summons small goblins to attack. Watching the battle, Suda realizes that the wolves will be stronger than the goblins, but the goblins are much more cunning than the wolves. In this case, the chances of winning for both sides are approximately equal. He throws a ball capsule at one of the wolves. Since there are many more goblins than wolves, the majority will win. And at the same time, he caught 5 wolves. He thinks that if they meet more goblins, they will have to call the wolves and give the goblins. Aphrodite carries a sack and starts screaming that she's had enough. Why should a goddess carry anything? Sotou says that there's nothing to be done because if she leaves it to the goblins, they'll be noticed closer to the city. Suda also notes that he has added a decent amount to his collection, but for some reason, the level is still the same. But he was able to obtain a new skill, Monster Crossbreeding. He read the skill requirement and realized that skills can be affected by the number of creatures caught. He reasons that crossbreeding is a skill that he can use to create new monsters. The young man decides to try this skill in the evening. After some time, in the Adventurers Guild, Aphrodite and Suda were presented with a reward of 40,000 coal. The young man thanks Chloe for the reward. The girl only shouts enthusiastically that Suda is incomparable. She says that the young man and the goddess completed the task in just half a day. They say that for a beginner, finding even 1 plant in a day is already a great success. The young man scratches his head and says that there is nothing complicated about it. In fact, it was not he who collected it, but compliments from such a beautiful girl make his chest warmer. After some time, leaving the guild, Suta asks Aphrodite how much money they got, approximately in Japanese yen. The girl answers that 1 call costs a little more than 1 yen. Suda was surprised and asked if it was true that they earned more than 40,000 yen in half a day. Aphrodite confirmed this and said that it was too much for such a person. The young man suggested finding an inn. After a while, Aphrodite stands there and is simply horrified. She asks Suda what kind of hovel he found and why he couldn't find a better hotel. Suda rented a room for 4,000 call per day, plus 2 meals a day. The young man replies that they have a roof over their heads and a separate room. Then why isn't that enough for the goddess? Besides, they don't have much money now, and they still need to feed the monsters too. The goddess agrees with the young man and says that she will go into the capsule. Entering inside, she wishes the hero good night, and Suda wonders how much sleep the goddess has had today. Sitting on the bed, Suda says that the bed is ready. The monsters are fed. So it's time to move on to testing the new skill, Monster Crossbreeding. A moment later, Suda sits in bewilderment, having made an unexpected discovery. He looks at the system messages, which indicate that even Aphrodite can be crossed. Suda suggests that if he crosses her with a goblin, he will succeed. He is interested in testing this, but decides to refrain from doing so and chooses a goblin. Then he must choose a creature to be used up. The young man decides to choose a wolf, but such a combination is impossible. The young man understands that a goblin and a wolf cannot be crossed, so the only thing left to do is to cross a goblin with a goblin. He sees that if a goblin is crossed with a goblin, an elite goblin with many interesting characteristics and skills will be produced. The elite goblin's parameters will grow, and the wolf will not be able to grab such a goblin. Suta also notes that elite goblins can be fused with each other. If elite goblins are fused, they will produce a goblin knight, but Suta has a limited number of monsters, so he must use their fusion and leveling wisely. 20 minutes later, from 42 ordinary goblins, the young man managed to create 1 elite and 10 goblin knights. The goblin's equipment and appearance have also changed, so it can be said that an elite goblin is a brave newcomer and a goblin knight is a seasoned leader. Suta thinks that it looks like the goblins are not leveling up past the knight level, and it turns out that at the moment he has the strongest army. He tells the goblins until tomorrow and wishes for new victories to come with them. At that moment, deep in the night, a young beautiful girl was running through the dark forest. She was running from a group of evil men who were trying to catch her. The girl thought about what to do next. She understands that it looks like everything will be different now. The man turns to his friend and says that if this girl escapes, someone named Bakra will kill them. The friend wonders why the potion does not work on the girl. He says that they have no other choice. He shouts at his colleagues and says that they will get into serious trouble if they damage valuable goods. Then they will be in trouble, but it is better than letting her escape, so he orders everyone to shoot. They aimed arrows at the girl. In an instant, the arrow hits the girl right in the shoulder. Suddenly, she stumbles and falls right off the cliff. She asks a powerful demon to save her. The goddess Aphrodite slowly follows the main character and decided to ask where they are going, because the Casella Forest is located in a completely different direction. Sotou replies that the Casella Forest is indeed in the other direction, but before that he wants to go to one place. Namely, to a trading shop with a license from the Adventurers Guild called Silver Shield. Sotou heard about this shop from Chloe. Thanks to the guild's license, adventurers are exempt from paying the duty imposed on the goods, so the prices are affordable and the heroes can get everything they need. Sotou and Aphrodite are met by a man named Edgar Martin. He greets the visitors and offers them something to buy. Sotou says he needs some clothes first. Edgar says the couple are dressed as if they were wearing the first thing they saw. He asks the customers to follow him. Aphrodite turns to Sotou and asks him if she can buy new clothes too. Sotou replies that the goddess's current outfit is too eye-catching, so she needs new clothes. Goddess Aphrodite begins to beam with joy. She says that this is the first time she buys clothes for herself. She also adds that in heaven, only regulated outfits can be worn. Sotou doesn't understand and thinks that the world can't be split in half if the gods wear casual outfits. But looking at Aphrodite, he thinks that she is very happy, and in the store, even Aphrodite acts like a normal girl. Their conversation is interrupted by Edgar Martin, who introduces the equipment department as the buyer. He shows the F-rank adventurer uniform and says that he can recommend this product that would be just right for Sotou and Aphrodite. Sotou sees the great price of these outfits and says he likes them very much, and notes that there are different designs for men and women. He asks Aphrodite if she likes these outfits. The girl begins to frown and says that these clothes are trash for commoners. She shows Sotou the E-class dancer's witch costume and says that she likes it. Sotou sweats and thinks to himself that this costume is very flashy and its price is 10 times more than the previous costumes. He starts yelling at Aphrodite and says that they buy clothes so that strangers won't stare at them, not to attract attention. The girl says that it has nothing to do with clothes and that as a goddess of beauty, she can't compromise on her appearance. Sotou realizes that there is only one thing left, namely that he can try to give her a small compliment. He says that Silly D herself is so charming that ordinary clothes cannot hide all her beauty. Looking at the girl, Sotou sees her embarrassed face. The girl covers her face with her hands and repeats Sutou's words about her being a charming girl. Sotou doesn't understand why Aphrodite is so embarrassed. He says that, aren't beauties like D fed up with such compliments? The girl turns around and says that she wasn't embarrassed at all. She also says that she didn't expect such things from Sotou, so they sounded very strange, so she was scared. She clarifies that the relationship between gods and humans is weak, so she has never heard such words from men before. Sotou thinks that this is unexpected, since she is a goddess of beauty, so men should shower her with compliments. The girl says that nothing can be done, since Sotou insists so much, she is ready to compromise. After some time, when Aphrodite has already changed her clothes, she asks Sotou if she really looks too simple in these clothes. The young man replies that this outfit suits her very well. Aphrodite looks at the young man and says that he looks good too. She feels like she has finally come to terms with this world. Sotou didn't think the clothes would fit so comfortably, cheap and high quality, so this purchase can be considered a success. He tells D to leave the package and go to Casella Forest. Aphrodite says that she will help today too. After some time, in the forest, Sotou tells the goblins to listen to him. Today they do the same as yesterday, that is, collect medicinal plants. The goblins are about to carry out tasks, and Sotou thinks to himself that due to the crossbreeding of goblins, there are fewer of them, but the wolves will not eat them now. The young man turns to Aphrodite and suggests that she also collect healing herbs and comrades. After a while, Aphrodite turns to Sotou. The boy turns around and sees her sitting on the ground. The girl says that she wants to rest because she is tired. The boy realizes that the lazy side of the goddess has returned. Suda says they've barely started, but if D is too tired, she can go back to the capsule. The girl turns to the side and says that she does not see a single healing flower, but suddenly she notices that something has dripped from above. Suddenly, Aphrodite began to shout for Suta to look at the tree. The young man looks up and sees a girl sitting on a branch of a large tree with an arrow sticking out of her shoulder. Suta tried to figure out how the girl had ended up there. Looking up, he thought she had fallen off a cliff and needed to be rescued anyway. He thought that the goblins had not yet returned from their mission, so the hero would have to climb the tree. He began to carry out the mission, and the goddess Aphrodite supported him from below. After lowering the wounded girl from the tree, Suda thought that it was very difficult. After examining her, he realized that she had a serious wound in her shoulder and that she did not just fall off the cliff because she had an arrow sticking out of her shoulder. He carefully places her on the ground and activates the skill, Piercing Eye. With this ability, he learns that the girl's name is Caroline Barton. She is 372 years old, and she is in a state of exhaustion. Suda wonders if there is a reason why such a beautiful girl is wearing a maid uniform. Noticing her age, he is horrified, because the girl looks younger than 20. The goddess Aphrodite, bending down, says that the girl is a vampire demon. Demons is a common name for all those who, 300 years ago, became allies of a powerful demon. Once upon a time, demons, possessing enormous power, subjugated people, and Aphrodite heard that they threatened even the gods. Suda was surprised by this information and asked the girl how the demon ended up in the forest. Dee replied that as far as she knew, when the powerful demon died, the other demons lost all their power, and since then they have been hiding from people. The goddess Aphrodite becomes sad looking at the girl and says that she is seriously injured, and if they leave her, she will die in less than an hour. Suda starts screaming and asks the girl if she can't be saved with the divine power that Aphrodite possesses, but she replies that it is simply impossible. Before, she could heal her wounds with magic, but now she has no magical power at all, but there is one way to save the girl. The ball capsule has the ability to restore health. By the way, Aphrodite already talked about this. In general, monster tamers are not able to subdue vampires. But with absolute dominance, Suda will be able to save this girl's life. Basically, now it's up to Suda to decide whether this girl will live or not, so it's a pretty tough choice. The young man looks at his spherical capsule and thinks that the choice is really very difficult. He thinks that to just take over the life of an unknown girl is a very terrible feeling of guilt. However, he has to do it, so he touches the girl's ball capsule, and it begins to glow brightly. After a while, he sees Caroline's name in his profile column. Finally, for the first time since he came to this world, his level increased. Apparently, vampires don't give very many experience points. He looks at the spherical capsule and wonders who this girl really is and what could have happened to her. To be honest, he hasn't realized yet what actually happened. But he knows for sure that he caught a very cute vampire girl. 3 hours later, the young man examines the tree and sees a huge amount of medicinal herbs. He says that the goblins have collected many more herbs than last time. However, although there is no sign of fatigue from the goblins, their work rate is clearly slowing down. Then Suda realizes that they have collected almost all the medicinal plants in this forest. He also realizes that there is no point in continuing to work, so he decides to call it a day. He thanks the goblins and asks them to return to the capsule. The young man is distracted by the goddess Aphrodite, who says that her time has come. She continues to taunt him, saying that Suda can't do anything without her. The young man looks questioningly at the goddess. The girl places her hands on her hips and tells the young man that if he bows before her, then perhaps today she too will help him carry the spoils. Suda looks at the girl with irritation and thinks that, nevertheless, even with Aphrodite, they won't be able to carry away all these healing herbs, and if they use the goblins, they will definitely be noticed. The girl begins to say in a loud voice that the young man needs to call her the most beautiful lady, Aphrodite, the goddess whose beauty eclipses the sun, and he also needs to hit his forehead on the ground and bow down. Here, Suda understands that absolute domination is the subordination of all living beings. That is, in other words, he can capture any natural objects. He decides to try using the ball capsule. Aphrodite does not understand what the young man wants to do. In an instant, the medicinal herbs begin to glow and are placed into the capsule. Suda is happy about this, because he managed to carry out his plan. He realizes that he seems to have no limits at all. Aphrodite stands in a panic and watches. He says that Suda understood everything correctly, that's why she made fun of him like that. The young man says that such a sweet and kind girl can't say such dirty things. D says that Suda understood correctly, he is growing up before her eyes. The young man says that since he is grown up, the girl has less and less work to do. He is going to say goodbye to her. Aphrodite pounces on Suda and asks him for forgiveness for going too far, and she also mentions that she had been helping him in good faith before this incident. She asks the young man not to abandon her. Some time later, in the Adventurers Guild, Chloe places a huge bag in front of Suda and Aphrodite and says that their reward for today is 64,000 coal. He calls Suda a real miracle worker, and everyone present looks at him and D. They whisper about who this newcomer is. Some remember him as the guy who registered as adventurers yesterday with some pretty girl. They remember him because he showed up in weird clothes. The young man thinks that they have really attracted attention, and there is almost no healing herb left in the forest, so he decides that tomorrow they will take on another quest. On the way to the inn, Suda and Aphrodite are distracted by a little girl who offers them a tasty apple. Suda looks at her and guesses that she is about 7 years old. In this world, even such a small child has to work. Aphrodite says she wants to eat, so she offers to buy the apple. Suda kneels down and asks the girl for 10 apples. Taking the bag of apples, they thank each other. On the way home, Suda and Aphrodite enjoy delicious apples. The young man thinks that the apples are just like on Earth, but the taste is richer. He also notes that this is the first sweet food he has had since he came here. Someone calls out to Aphrodite and Suda from the side and demands that they stop. That someone was Bakra Acriman, who was 37 years old. He looked like an angry and cruel man. People in the area recognized him and called him Lord. No one understood why he had come here. The man hands Suda and Aphrodite a piece of paper with a picture of a girl on it and asks if the young men recognize her. Aphrodite and Suda recognize the portrait as Caroline, whom Suda had recently placed in the capsule. Suda tried to understand why these men needed Carolina. Bakra interrupted his thoughts by asking why the young man was silent and whether he knew anything. Suda replied that he had no idea who this girl was and why these people were interested in her. One of Bakraji's henchmen was indignant at the young man's tone and said that he did not dare to talk to his master like that. He said that Bakra Acriman was the 4th major slave trader in St. Bell. Suda replied that he understood now, but in his mind he thought that he understood nothing. Bakraji's assistant said that if the young man showed discourtesy again, he would lose his worthless and miserable life. He continued by saying that despite the fact that this girl from the leaflet was their purchased product, this scoundrel took it into her head and managed to escape from them. Sotou thought that the picture in his head was becoming clearer and clearer. Caroline had not really wanted to be enslaved by these people and had escaped, and during her escape she had been wounded and had fallen off a cliff. Then he had said that for a reward he would bring her back. Bakra Acriman and his henchmen turned away and laughed, saying very loudly that Suda was rumored to be involved in slavery as well. The goddess Aphrodite awkwardly said that she had some kind of unpleasant premonition. The witnesses of this commotion approached the young man and the girl to say that this idea would actually ruin them, because if they were caught by Mr. Bakra, terrible things would happen. Suda did not understand what they were talking about. A man asked him if he knew about Mr. Bakra. Suda replied that he and Aphrodite had just arrived in the city. The man decided to tell them about Bakra, but asked them to be quiet. Rumor has it that all he does is spend his life in dirty pleasures with his slaves. At the same time, countless slaves are brutally killed. If he drags Suda to the mansion and makes a contract for owning you, then you can say goodbye to life. Suda thought that the same thing happened to Carolina, so she decided it was better not to get involved in it. Suddenly, his thoughts were interrupted by the cry of Bakra Acriman. The man shouted at a little girl who had recently sold apples to Suda. He said the girl had no right to display apples there without a permit to sell them. Suda recognized her as the apple seller from earlier. Meanwhile, Bakra approached the girl with a terrible grin and grabbed her. He said that bad girls deserve to be punished. He started to pull her along and told her to follow him and that he would teach her a lesson at home. Suddenly, someone shouted at him from the side. It was Suda. The boy asked by what right the man did this. He used force on children, which is an unworthy act for an adult. In his thoughts, he thought that although he had decided that he would not interfere in this dispute, he still took this stupid step because he had no other choice. since his whole soul was turning inside out. Bakra Acriman glared menacingly at the young man and said that it was those adventurers again. He started shouting, asking if the young man had any complaints. Aphrodite placed her hands on the little girl's shoulders. Sotou thought that he only had one complaint. That was that enslaving little girls was only allowed in the 2D world, because people like Bakra should only exist in manga. The man was already angry because how dare the young man remain silent and not answer him. He grabs his sword. Aphrodite began to scream his name. The man took out his blade and, wishing death on Sotou, rushed straight towards him. The situation was very critical. The man was rushing straight at Sotou. The goddess Aphrodite closed her eyes and hugged the little girl close to her. Panic overtook everyone around. Suddenly, something started to shine. And Bakraji's blade was stopped by a goblin who had emerged from the ball capsule. Sotou was holding it out right behind the goblin's back. Bakra realized that Sotou was a monster tamer, but so what? He easily knocks the sword out of the goblin's hands and hits him on the armor. Sotou realized that the man moved very well, even though he looked clumsy. Bakra just said that he would make the monster tamer regret opposing his will. He ordered his subordinates to surround the young man. Everyone around ran away to avoid being victims of the fight. Sotou looked at his ball capsule and told the goblins that their job was to protect all defenseless people. In an instant, a dozen goblin knights appeared next to him, ready to go into battle. Bakra Acriman was surprised by such a large number of goblins and said that this simply could not be. Sotou had already given the order that the enemy was scared, so this was a great chance for the goblins to begin the attack. Someone was very surprised that the goblins had weapons that they made from wood. Sotou thought that they would make a promising army when he saw how easily they dealt with people. After a while, everyone was defeated, but suddenly someone shouted at Sotou from behind. It was Bakra Acriman. He overpowered Aphrodite and grabbed the girl. The man shouted and gave Sotou a choice, that either his army retreats and he obeys his orders, or he will hurt this little girl very much. The girl cried, calling Sotou brother. Bakra wondered why the boy was standing there silently. Sotou said that he understood everything, that he first asked to collect the monsters himself while throwing a ball capsule directly at Bakra Acriman. The man caught the capsule and wondered what the strange thing was. Meanwhile, Sotou said with a cruel grin that the man was caught. Suddenly, the spherical capsule lit up and Bakra Acriman along with it. He was scared and didn't know what was happening now and what kind of light was enveloping his body. Sotou caught the ball capsule and looked inside. There was a miniature Bakra Acriman. The man did not understand where he was and asked to let him out. The young man said that it served him right. He addressed the man as uncle and asked him to fall asleep and not wake up until he ordered it. Bakra did not hear the order, but his body began to fall asleep. In an instant, he was already asleep inside the capsule. Looking around, Sotou thought that this was a rather unusual development of the plot and that the townspeople should have already fled. He approached the little girl and asked her if she was okay. The girl said she was fine and took Sutou's hand and thanked him for saving her. Sotou said goodbye to the girl and thought that she was okay, but he was again overtaken by the feeling that his ability of absolute submission, depending on the intention, could become a dangerous weapon. If used thoughtlessly, it could disrupt the harmony of the universe. The young man's thoughts are interrupted by the goddess Aphrodite. The girl blushed awkwardly and said that she really didn't want to say such things, but Sotou should know that he was very good today. The young man was confused and dumbfounded. He said that he could not believe his ears, because Aphrodite was not capable of such flattering words. The girl freaked out and hurriedly walked on. Sotou laughed, agreeing with her, and then added that they were going to look for a hotel. After a while, the heroes found a hotel. Today, thanks to the goblins, they earned a little more than Sotou expected, but they took a room that was almost twice as expensive as yesterday, but the young man wanted to take a bath so much that he had to fork out. He also captured 18 goblins and improved them, thus strengthening his fighting power. This can be considered an excellent result. However, not everything is so smooth, because the capsule healed the wounds of the demoness Caroline Barton, but she still cannot come to her senses. Suddenly, the girl makes some kind of mooing sound. Sotou understands that she has come to her senses. The girl opened her eyes and muttered something about a powerful demon. Sotou is confused and says that it seems the girl has confused him with someone else. The girl finally comes to her senses, jumps out of bed, and says that she cannot be forgiven because she said it unconsciously. She looks around and asks where they are. Suda explains that they are currently at the inn in St. Bell. He also explains that they found her injured in the forest, so they took her with them. Carolina says she remembers it all vaguely, but she asks if it was Suda who saved her when she was hanging from the tree. Her vision is blurry, but she remembers it all in general terms. She asks him to express her gratitude, but the boy says it is not worth it. The girl says that she forgot to introduce herself. Her name is Caroline Barton, but if the young man wants, he can just call her Carly, because close people can call her that. She then asks the boy's name. The hero introduces himself as Kazuhaya Sutoi. She then calls Suda Lord and asks him to express her gratitude to her with his consent. Suda did not understand why the girl insistently wanted to express her gratitude to him. The girl apologized for her impudence. She says that she was brought here as a slave. Humanity blossomed, gained strength, and people drove the demons out of their homes. The demons were forced to hide, and if demons were caught, they were immediately sold to the nobility, but the girl had nowhere to go. She started shouting, saying that if Suda didn't mind, could she join him and let Suda help him on his journey in life. The young man says that it is not necessary, so he suggests hiring her as a maid or something like that. Caroline says that any role will do for her. She says that she is too talkative, but she is very confident in her fighting skills, and if Suda allows her to join him in Aphrodite's adventures, she will be very useful to them, and she can also help them earn money. Suda looks at Carolina's stats and says that her words can be trusted because her stats are very high. Her skills include the highest level of fire, wind, water, darkness magic, and a medium level of light. Besides, if Carolina is left alone, she will probably get into trouble again, so Suda has no choice but to agree. He says that he sees no reason to refuse help. She thanks the young man, calling him her master. Suda was surprised that she called him master. The girl explained that he had become her master, so she would call him that. She asked if that sounded strange. The boy said no. His face turned red, and he said that it was not strange at all, and that henceforth she should always call him her master. He thought to himself that it was good fortune that the girl had called him master, and he did not have to pay her for it. Carolina then calls Suda Lord and says that if he wants the girl to do something for him, whatever it is, he has to say it. If Suda has an order, the girl is going to obey everything. The young man asks, "Is that all?" The girl comes up and says that since the master saved her life, her soul now belongs entirely to the master. She asks to let her be ground into dust for Suda's sake. The young man thinks that if he imagines it this way, this is his best chance. A maid with silver hair and scarlet eyes on the bed and ready for anything. From the realization, everything in Suda trembles, turning inside out. Suddenly, Aphrodite comes into the room in a dressing gown. The girl smiles and says that she has vacated the bathroom. Suda screams and asks why the girl came out in such simple clothes. Aphrodite asks, looking at Caroline, if she has woken up. At this time, Caroline, sitting on the bed, is horrified and begins to scream that the goddess has forgotten herself here. Suda asks Carolina how she knew that Aphrodite was a goddess. The girl replies that gods and demons are two sides of one whole. Because they are created opposites of each other, the girl can feel its essence. Suda thinks about how this seems to be true. He also remembers that when Aphrodite saw Carly, she immediately said with absolute certainty that she was a demon. Suda decides to introduce Carly to a goddess. He says that since everything has been revealed by itself, this girl's name is Aphrodite. Carly starts screaming, repeating the goddess's name. She is horrified at how one of the 12 Olympian gods ended up on Earth. She asks Aphrodite if she is not a high-ranking sky god. Aphrodite rests her hand on her hip and says that Carly said everything correctly. Suda thought that Dee's name can be heard often in video games, but he never thought that in this world she would be a famous person. He also thinks that he managed to do it, of course. It turns out that he has in his possession both a goddess and a demoness that are incompatible with each other. But first, he must confess to her that they have accepted her into the team to fight a powerful demon. After the story, Carly sums up and says that Mr. Suda and the goddess are traveling to find and destroy a powerful demon. She says that she understands everything and that she will do her best to help her master. Suda thanks her. She then changes the subject, apologizing in advance, and asks permission to use the shower too. Suda allows her, and Aphrodite says that she hasn't run the hot water yet. Entering the bathroom, the girl realized that she had met a strange person. In fact, she had recently heard that a hero from another world would appear in this world, but she had not heard anything about the divine protection of the goddess. Upon opening the water, She realized that there was only one person in the world with such power, and that was the great and powerful demon, Lord Ibris. With the power to subjugate all the demon kings, he cruelly established his authority in this world. When she first saw Lord Suda, his face reminded her of a powerful demon. As a servant, she had never been as devoted to anyone as she was to Master Ibris, and that was why she fell in love with him. Her intuition tells her that Mr. Suda is the reborn Mr. Ibris. Sitting in the bathtub, she thought that the soul of a demon with such enormous power as his does not die after the death of the body. And so it happened. A famous fortune teller prophesied the rebirth of a powerful demon. However, it seems that Lord Suda does not realize this. If the prophecy is true, Lord Suda will soon gain the power of a powerful demon. Carly has no doubt that he will once again be the ruler of Athlgate. Giggling awkwardly, the girl doesn't understand what came over her, because she should not be so excited. She says that the day will come when she will be able to serve Suda, just like in her dreams. The next morning, Suda was standing right in front of the Adventurers Guild. He was clutching his ball capsule and telling himself that there were more of them, so he needed to earn more money. Bakra Acriman is still at his fingertips. Caroline will also live in the capsule for a while, because it will be better for her. Entering the Adventurers Guild building, Suda realizes that they have collected almost all the medicinal plants, so they need to figure out what to do next. He overhears what the other adventurers are saying. They said that new quests have been added to the board. The second one confirmed that there was a heavy rainfall over Zumalia Swamp yesterday, and that is why the monsters are so active. Suda approaches the board and thinks about what to take. 3 tasks come into his field of vision: pacifying light mushrooms, pacifying amoebic slime, and collecting mushrooms for healing nutrition. The young man thought these tasks were very good. He notes that all the tasks are located near the Zumalia swamps, so he thought of taking all the tasks at once. Therefore, after only 2 hours, Suda was at the Zumalia swamp. He brings the ball capsule to his face and says that there is no one nearby. Then Aphrodite and Carolina appeared next to the poison. The girl says that they can really enter and exit the capsule freely. The girl reasons that the all-taming, absolute domination. Such a skill is already too much for a simple person. They are interrupted by Aphrodite, who screamed, pointing at a small mushroom that was rushing straight towards them. It was a mushroom monster. The monster was called Light Mushroom. It was level 2 and its highest stat was Vitality. The mushroom also had the skill Paralyzing Powder. Suda approaches Carly and says that he would like to see her fighting skills, so he asks if she would mind if he entrusts her with the mushroom. He also asks her not to kill her, but just to drain her of her powers. The girl asks Suda to trust her, and then heads towards the mushroom. She thinks she must impress the owner. The mushroom prepares to attack and uses Paralyzing Powder. Suda thinks that he shouldn't have been forced to fight without knowing his opponent's abilities. Carly clears her throat and mutters under her breath that she can taste mushrooms. With her magic, the girl blows away the mushroom spores. This really scares the little mushroom monster. Suda noticed that Carly had blown away the mushroom spores with wind magic. The girl then jumps up and finds herself right behind the mushroom monster. She swings her leg and then kicks the mushroom, destroying it. The girl awkwardly turns to the hero. The young man gives a thumbs up and says that Carly's attack was simply amazing. He praises the girl, saying that she is super and can be relied upon in battle. The girl awkwardly thanks him for the praise, and the goddess Aphrodite, standing to the side, begins to frown. Suddenly, she starts waving her arms and shouting to Suda that she will be the most useful and energetic in this team. Suda, throwing a ball sphere, says that with their combined efforts, they will quickly complete all the tasks and return to the city. Suda says that this time their task is to collect medicinal mushrooms, so just like with the medicinal plants, they will handle it with the goblin avalanche tactic. But this time, they should split into 3 teams: Suda's team, Dee's team, and Carly's team. He continues by saying that giving orders to one person isn't very effective, so if they can do it quickly, he'd like to take on some more monster pacification. If anything happens, he'll need Carly and Dee. Caroline says she doesn't mind the new orders, and then, seeing a crowd of goblins, asks how many creatures Suda has tamed. It all looks very impressive. The young man responds by asking if the girl really thinks it's amazing. He then tells her that she's wrong because she has no one to compare it to. Carolina says that many people think that monster tamers with 3 creatures are already great people. Suda couldn't believe his ears. Goddess Aphrodite says that Suda eventually got a lot of experience points from her, the goddess, as much as needed so that he would not give her work. Suda and Carolina looked at Aphrodite with some surprise and wondered why she had such a smug smile. Then the young man changed the subject and suggested sharing according to the plan. He tells the goblins that they must follow the orders of Aphrodite and Caroline, and if anything happens, they must protect them with all their might. 10 minutes later, one of the goblins delivered the mushrooms to Suta. The young man was amazed at how quickly the work was completed. As he looked at the capsule, he thought to himself that he wanted to complete the collection of medicinal mushrooms, but first he had to do something. Then he summons Bakra Acriman. The man is level 18, and his strongest parameter is physical strength. He has 3 skills. He is a master of dagger slaughter, as well as a basic level of fire and water magic. The man didn't realize where he was. Suda remembered that he had given him the task of sleeping in a ball when he was able to catch him, so it seems that everything is just beginning for this man. Bakra saw Suta and started to attack him. The young man in turn summoned a light mushroom to use its skill, paralyzing powder. The mushroom used its skill right on Bakra. Bakra Acriman acquired a state of paralysis. The young man realized that the powder of this mushroom was even better than he expected. He reads the skill information. The range of the paralyzing powder is about 2 meters, and for monster tamers like Suda, this is just what you need. He decides to summon the wolves just in case, and then ponders what to do with this man. He has a limited number of tamed creatures, so there is no reason to keep Bakra in the ball. And after reading the activation condition of his skill, Master of Daggers, which is to kill more than 10 people for pleasure, Suda understands that such a person cannot be left alive. Bakra starts screaming and asks Suta to kill him. It will be better than becoming a pathetic errand boy. The young man realizes that the man is like a depraved knight who is surrounded by orcs. The young man understands that he cannot kill him and he cannot let him go. In this case, he comes up with a plan. He asks Bakra to calm down because the young man has no dealings with people like him. The man asks if Suda will let him go. Bakra looks at Suda and does not understand what he wants. He says that the young man does not let him go and does not kill him. What does he want then? Suda says that he wants to reincarnate him. He chooses a wolf as a base creature, and the creature that will serve as the material is Bakra Acriman. Suddenly, Bakra Acriman starts glowing. He screams because he doesn't understand what Suda is going to do to him. Instead of Bakra Acriman, a D-class werewolf appears, which has physical strength. The distinctive features of the fight are fast movements and claw attacks. He looks at the werewolf and wonders if werewolves can speak Japanese. He thinks the beast looks pretty cool. He orders the werewolf to give him his paw, and it happily does so. Suda thinks the problem is solved since the werewolf seems to follow all his orders. He realizes that he has created the strongest monster in his collection. Suda looks at the huge pile of mushrooms and realizes that it is an impressive harvest. He understands that teamwork brings many benefits, and perhaps goblins are the kind of species that fully reveal themselves when working in a group. Carolina says, turning to the owner, that she killed the light mushroom, and as proof she brought a part of its body. Aphrodite shouts that she brought more materials. Suda thanked the girls. The young man thinks that he gave Dee and Carly another task, so now they can complete tasks at their discretion at the same time, and this time they have a very large catch. Suddenly, Carolina asks the owner how they will carry all this on themselves, because it is too much for 3 at once. Suda asks Carolina not to worry about it. He uses a ball capsule and moves all the mushrooms there. Carolina says it's amazing, and she admires how Suda uses the ball capsule. She also adds that she didn't doubt the master's powers. Suda scratches the back of his head and says that every new reaction from Carolina makes him feel very awkward. He thinks that his goddess is replacing him, but before he can make a reservation, he notices that she is not there. Suddenly, they heard a scream from the side. An amoebic slug was attacking Aphrodite. The monster was level 7 and class F. It had high survivability, but no skills at all. Suda realized that the amoebic slug was over 2 meters tall, and in terms of stats, it was the strongest of the wild creatures he had encountered. Meanwhile, the goddess of beauty, Aphrodite, begged Suda to save her because the monster was all sticky and she felt uneasy. Suda asks Aphrodite to hold on a little longer and he will save her now. However, to everyone's surprise, the amoebic slug knocks away the ball capsule that Suda threw at it. It was so unexpected that everyone was surprised. No one had ever hit the capsule, so Suda hadn't thought about it. So hit doesn't mean hit. The young man tries to figure out what to do. The mushroom's paralyzing powder won't reach this slug, and it might also hit Aphrodite. Suddenly, Carly tells the young man to trust her, because with the strength of her legs, he can easily get to him. Sotou notices Carolina's self-confidence and thanks her. If she lands at least one hit on him, he will have one chance to ask for a capsule in this monster. Suddenly, Aphrodite makes a very strange sound. Sotou notices this and says that she is screaming very strangely and asks if something happened to her. The girl says that this monster is touching something it shouldn't touch. Sotou realized that the slug was trying to take Aphrodite's clothes. Most likely, he decided that the clothes were preventing him from eating the girl. The young man apologizes to the goddess and shouts at the monster to do something bad to her, while in his thoughts he supports him in every possible way. Carolina looked at her master with embarrassment and thought that this damn goddess of beauty had managed to charm her master. She approaches the slug slowly and gives it a chance to grab her. Then she says, embarrassed, that there is no forgiveness for her because she was also captured. Sotou tries to process what's happening in his head. He thinks that the slug can't be strong enough to catch even Carolina with her level and stats. At one point, he realized that it wasn't his imagination that she had just run and surrendered to this monster without resistance. Hearing her scream, he pushed these thoughts aside, because that simply couldn't be. The girl said sheepishly that the tentacles of this amoebic slug were very sticky. She did not expect that. At one point, the monster pulled off Carolina's clothes as well. The young man thought that he had pulled off his clothes again, like a god. Sotou began to look at what was happening and could not tear his gaze away, considering it all beautiful. He was pulled out of his thoughts by the cry of the goddess Aphrodite, who ordered the young man to quickly save her and Caroline. Carly asked the young man to save them as he wished. The young man stood on the ground, waking up, and wondered what to do next, because he couldn't just stand there and stare. If he didn't save his girlfriends, the monster slug might eat them. In an instant, he noticed that all the tentacles of the amoebic slug were now occupied because he was holding Caroline and Aphrodite with them. The young man decides to throw the ball capsule at him again. The object hits the target and successfully captures the slug. In front of Sotou. The amoebic slug was a level 1 aquatic monster. It was a tenacious monster, and its skills were completely absent. Feeling a solid support under their body, the girls exhaled calmly. Aphrodite was all sticky, but she was glad that she was saved. Carolina crossed her arms and called the owner of Sotou delightful. Having reached the city, the young man held the spherical capsule and thought to himself that, for him, this military expedition had turned into a rich catch. He, Aphrodite, and Carolina have completed all the quests. Sotou has caught 7 mushrooms and even 1 amoebic slug. He even decides to try to crossbreed the creatures he has caught in the evening. When he reaches the Adventurers Guild, he thinks that his smile never leaves his face as Chloe praises him. After some time, the quest reward of 76,000 coal was ready. Chloe told Sotou that he was as excellent as always. Usually, it takes more than a year to complete such a volume of work, but the young man has collected so much material in one. She has never seen anything like it. Sotou scratches his head and laughs. He says he doesn't deserve such praise. And he thinks to himself that Chloechka has sunk into his soul, because she always praises him and she herself is very kind. The young man clears his throat and invites the young girl to have dinner together in the evening, somewhere near the Adventurers Guild. However, Chloe suddenly tells Sotou abruptly that she will agree some other time. Sotou thinks to himself that the outsiders on Earth and in the other world are also outsiders. This is very sad. In any case, the young man now has money, so he is going to go now and buy out the entire department store. Aphrodite and Carolina are waiting outside. They see Sotou crying and discuss it among themselves. Suddenly, the young man turns around and asks Carolina if she needs to buy anything, because in her new life she probably has all sorts of different needs, so forgive him. Don't be shy and tell him. Carolina starts to shine and thanks Sotou. She agrees to his offer and says that she would be happy with comfortable clothes that are easy to move in, because in the maid uniform it is difficult. Sotou agrees to this offer. She also starts to get a little embarrassed and, blushing, asks Sotou to buy her a change of clothes as well, because the only clothes she has now are what she is wearing. Sotou clenches his hand into a fist and says firmly and clearly that he will have to select this very carefully. Aphrodite chimes in and says that she wants clothes like that too. Sotou remembers that she bought them for herself yesterday, and Aphrodite replies that a woman can never have too many clothes to change into. After some time, They reach a trading shop with a guild license called Silver Shield. Suda goes inside, followed by Aphrodite and Carolina. They see before them a place where clothes are sold, where all the goods are shining with beauty. Women's clothing in Athlgate is almost no different in design from what is made on Earth. The other day, from the story at Mr. Edgar, the owner of the trading shop, Suda learned that in Athlgate there is a material similar to rubber, which is easy to process, and it seems that the history of women's clothing goes back many centuries. In general, as a fan of clothes for young girls, there is something in this world that will pleasantly surprise Suda. He also specifies that for now, classic clothes are in first place for him. Aphrodite and Caroline are looking at the goods in the windows. The goddess asks Caroline to look at one item, calling it very cute, but the demoness replies that it is no longer appropriate for her age. Suda approaches the girls to also look at the display. As he expected, Aphrodite has chosen a cute little thing in a bright red, while Caroline, on the contrary, has chosen a wonderful shade of purple. Imagining the image in his head, the young man understands that it is difficult to choose between super and awesome. Suddenly, Aphrodite notices a young man behind her. She starts yelling at him, asking why he followed them and telling him to get out of the store. Caroline says she doesn't mind his presence. A moment later, the young man was already standing outside the shop. Well, nothing can be done, so he decides to go and see something. He remembers that he has goblin knights, but for some reason they are running around with ordinary wooden sticks, so if they are given stronger weapons, they will most likely be more useful in battles. Suda calls the merchant at this weapon shop and asks if he has any weapons that are suitable for beginners. The man, raising his fist to his chin, thought. The man said that he had some kind of weapon for beginners, but he could not recommend it to Suta. The young man wondered why. The man says he doesn't have a specialty shop, so he has few weapons he's familiar with, let alone repaired. He recommends that beginners buy better weapons from a specialty shop. He also explains that many shops provide free repairs for a period of time after purchase. Suda is surprised by this. The man continues and says that if the young man wants, he can suggest a gun shop in St. Bell. After a while, Carolina and Aphrodite show up. Suda is eager to see Carolina's new look, which she will wear on her next mission. The girl bought an E-Class Ranger suit and F-Class leather boots. She thought that such clothes were very expensive, but Suda told the girl not to worry about the price and also praised her for her good choice. While Suda was flying in the clouds, Aphrodite looked at the price tag of this suit and was indignant. Because Carolina's clothes are much more expensive than hers, as much as 6 times. Suda says that if the girl insists so much, he will buy her something new next time. Aphrodite was embarrassed and made the young man promise that next time they will buy her a new suit too. After some time, the group arrived at the last place for today, a gun shop that Mr. Edgar had told them about. Suda assumed that they had arrived, judging by the route description. Suddenly, Aphrodite whispered to Suda and suggested not to go to that store. Carolina would also prefer to go to another one than to this one. The appearance of the shop was simply terrible. An old and cracked building with a closed door and curtained windows. The shop was called the Scarlet Blade Gun Shop, a very creepy place. Suda even introduced the shop owner as a grumpy, eccentric uncle. However, the shop was closed, so he decided to come another time. Suddenly, the door of the shop opened and a cute little girl came out. It was Seal. Otherlod was a dwarf. She looked to be 13 years old. She opened her eyes and greeted the bright sky, saying that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Suda, Aphrodite, and Carolina were amazed that a little girl came out to them. Suddenly, the girl notices 3 people who have arrived. She asks if they have come to the store. Suda slowly asks if she is the owner by any chance. The girl replies that the boy hit the nail on the head. She runs the Scarlet Blade shop, and her name is Seal. Otherlod. The girl rubbed her cheek and asked shyly, smiling, what kind of weapon the customers were looking for. She clarified that she had finally finished with the pile, so she was ready to serve them. Suda was at a loss for words. He thought that this little girl, who looked to be 13 years old, was in charge of the entire store. Suddenly, Seal opens his eyes and screams in fear, addressing Suda as Mr. Adventurer. She asks, pointing to Aphrodite and Caroline, if those 2 girls really came with the boy. She says that it was like being doused with ice water. It is the first time she sees such charming visitors. She also calls them amazing beauties. Carolina immediately blushed, and Aphrodite said that everything was decided. They will buy weapons in the shop, Scarlet Blade. Suda said that Aphrodite just suggested looking for another shop. The girl replied that it was a long time ago, so she does not remember anything like that. She says that at first sight she was almost knocked off her feet by her beauty, so this little one is promising. Aphrodite is sure that she knows her blacksmithing. Suda didn't understand why Carly and Dee were here at all. Seal said, "Welcome to the customers." She asked them to come in, take their time, and look around. Suda is stunned. The outside of the store looks so creepy, but inside, everything is very clean and comfortable. He looks at the goods and thinks that everything is as he expected. The retail shop has nothing to compete with. Such a rich, specialized store. But on the other hand, there is so much goods that his eyes run wide. Seal noticed Suda's awkwardness and said that she felt that Mr. Adventurer was not experienced with weapons yet, so she offered her help and wanted to suggest something. Suda beamed with joy. However, Suda hesitated and said that he did not need the weapon. After a while, a goblin stood in front of Ciel. She realized that the weapon was for the goblin knights. The girl apologizes and says that she has never picked up a weapon for monsters before. She tries to think of something. Suda says that means Ciel has never seen tamers as customers before. The girl replies that there have been, but few people buy weapons for monsters, primarily because not all monsters can use weapons. The young man recalls that indeed, among all the monsters he saw, only the goblin knights could use weapons. He had never met a goblin, an elite goblin, or a goblin knight in the city or the forest. It was probably almost impossible to instill weapon skills in monsters unless one had the ability to crossbreed monsters. Suda agrees with Ciel and offers her to look at some set, so he asks to see something like a cheap one for beginners. Ciel accepted the request. After a while, the goblin was holding an F-class bronze sword. Adventurers often go on raids, so they prefer a bronze sword. He also held a F-class round shield, which was light and easy to handle. The whole thing cost 9,000 coal. Suda looks at his three goblins, who are armed with a sword and shield, a spear, and a mace. He realizes that they now look exactly like knights. He also assumes that when he can equip all the goblins as knights, he will have his own squad of unstoppables. The young man understands that the price is not too high, so he tells Ciel that they will test all the weapons now and then buy 3 more shields. The girl thanks the young man with a smile. The young man moves everything into a spherical capsule and says that tomorrow they will fight and see if the weapon is suitable for goblins. After payment, Ciel asks Suda for one last thing, a name for the visitor card, so that subsequent repairs to the weapon are free. She also says that if the weapon gets dull, it should be brought to the shop. The girl smiles and gives Suda a visitor card and says that they are always happy to see him at the Scarlet Blade store. In the evening, Suda had already arrived at his hotel. Aphrodite and Carolina plopped down on the sofa, and Suda sat down on a chair and stretched. Finally, he could rest. The young man thought that his group had done a lot of things today, but his level had not increased at all, but suddenly he noticed that a new skill had appeared. Contact. The ability allows one to maintain a mental conversation with captured targets within a radius of 50 meters from the tamer. He understands that this ability is similar to telepathy. He realizes that if this skill works, it will bring a lot of benefits, so he decides to use it right now on Caroline and Aphrodite, who are resting on the bed. Suda suggests that he needs to direct his thoughts towards Aphrodite and Caroline to test the new skill. He uses telepathy to warn Aphrodite and Caroline that he has learned a new telepathy skill, and if they hear him, they should try to respond with a thought voice as well. Aphrodite is surprised by this and says that this can't be true, then asks if the voice in her head is really Suda's. Carolina is also surprised and says that it is simply amazing and that she is very impressed. Carly added that they will now be able to talk to the owner 24 hours a day. Suda suggested trying to test the contact skill in different ways, so he asked Caroline and Aphrodite to help him. Carolina agreed, and Aphrodite said that she had no choice. After a while, Suda said that the skill, contact in general, is very clear. It turns out to be a super useful skill. The main point for using the skill is that without Suda's participation, his other warrior monsters, Aphrodite and Caroline, cannot communicate with each other. Even with this requirement, Suda thinks that this skill is still pretty cool, especially the fact that it can send commands even to those in the capsule. Goddess Aphrodite asks if they are finished. Suda says that it is finished and thanks everyone for their help. The girl says she's the first to shower, and Carolina says she'll do the laundry. Suda decides to quickly crossbreed the monsters. Today, he caught 8 light mushrooms and 2 amoebic slugs. He looks at what he can cross and sees that there is only one possible combination, a light mushroom and an amoebic slug. He also sees a skill that can be created, a paralyzing powder of confusion that puts the opponent into a state of sexual desire. Sotou realizes that he needs to confirm this skill immediately. He crosses a light mushroom with an amoebic slug, summoning a mad mushroom. The young man notes that the mushroom has changed the color of its cap, and that's all. In other respects, it hasn't changed its appearance one bit. The young man examines the new monster and thinks about how to conduct the experiment. If he orders the spores to be sprayed on the girl, then this can be regarded as a bad deed committed by bad men. Suddenly, he realizes that if he orders the crazy mushroom to spray spores with the help of contact, then most likely the victim will not even realize that this is the work of Sotou himself. In general, the young man understands that this is the perfect crime. Suddenly, the bathroom door opens, and the goddess Aphrodite comes out. The girl sees the new monster and says that he has a very cute pink hat. She also says that Sotou has a very convenient skill to create such creatures, because you can make as many powerful monsters as you want, and the day when he defeats the powerful demon and she returns to heaven is even closer. Sotou is stunned, because now is the perfect chance. He uses his contact skill to speak his thoughts to the mushroom so that it can use his powder of disorder skill. Suddenly, the mushroom sprays spores right on the goddess. The girl starts coughing and asks what kind of powder it is. Suddenly, the powder gets to the young man himself. He understands that this action was reckless, because it seems that the chaos powder has a larger attack area than the paralyzing powder. Suddenly, Aphrodite grabs Sotou by the shoulders and, blushing, throws him to the floor. The girl says that something is wrong with her, and she doesn't understand what's happening to her. Sotou realizes that his entire body is also burning and he cannot resist. The effect of the mad mushroom powder affected both Aphrodite and Sotou. The situation was very uncomfortable, but now the young man is unable to think clearly. He thought that Dee was actually a very attractive girl. Suddenly, Aphrodite began to lean right towards Sutou's face. She asked him to freeze for a minute. Suddenly, Carolina appeared in the room with a bucket of cool water. She poured all the water on Aphrodite, and some fell on Sotou. Then the girl asked if the goddess and her master had come to their senses. After the goddess Aphrodite came to her senses, she became embarrassed and shouted at Sotou not to look at her. She asked many questions, such as, what was going on here? The girl said that no matter what was going on here, she did not like Sotou. She ran away, slamming the door behind her. Caroline thought in her mind that this cunning cat was wagging her tail at her master. She wanted to kill Aphrodite. The young man asked if Caroline was okay. The girl asked what the master wanted from her, and in her thoughts she reproached herself for having to restrain her feelings. Sotou didn't understand what just happened. It seemed that due to the contact skill, some of Carolina's thoughts leaked out. He didn't expect that from this cute girl. He said that now they know that cold water helps against the abilities of the mad mushroom. Caroline replied that when she lived in the village, they were often attacked by mad mushrooms, and she knows how to resist them. She then tells the master that if he tries out new skills in the future, he should use her. Unlike Lady Aphrodite, Caroline continued, no matter how ashamed she was, she would not run away. Sotou replied that he would think about it, and in his mind he wondered why she needed it. He also thought that even though he had disguised his command to attack as a contract, it seemed that Carolina had seen through it. He couldn't sleep a wink the rest of the night. He was worried that all his thoughts would leak into Aphrodite and Caroline's heads. And remembering Carly's creepy smile made him shudder. The next day, the Adventurers Guild was in a real commotion. Everyone was discussing a ridiculous quest that had appeared on the quest board. It promised a good sum of money, but someone said that this money would not be needed in the afterlife. Sotou enters the Adventurers Guild and notices a large number of people at the notice board. A bird dragon was posted on the board. The reward was 3 million coal, and the required rank was G-class. Then Sotou realized where such a crowd came from, and he decided to ask Chloe about everything. The girl explained that this task appeared the other day, and the information came from eyewitnesses who had visited the Casella forest. The target is the basilisk. It is an extremely dangerous predatory monster. It is said that it can use fire breathing. Chloe recommends that Sotou prepare thoroughly for this task. Sotou knows basilisk can spit poison, and its gaze turns all living things into stone, but it seems that in this world it only uses fire breath, but there is still something to be afraid of. After some time, Aphrodite asks why Sotou did not take the quest. The young man replies that he realized that the quest would take a very long time, so he wants to go to the Zumalia swamp. The girl began to insist on this task because the reward is 3 million coal. She says that this is their chance to earn a lot of money. Sotou also confirmed that he thought of a very tempting offer. However, such a high price hints that the quest is very, very dangerous, and they want not only to take a risk, but also to return alive, because life is above all else. Aphrodite made an insistent look and said that this is what the one who threw the ball capsule at the great goddess of beauty is telling her. She also says that Sotou is too cautious. Carolina interrupts her and says that when it comes to the basilisk, it is an evil monster that can easily destroy an entire village, and even a group of 10 adventurers will not be able to handle it. Aphrodite says that if that's the case, then everything is clear, and they will take this task some other time. She also mentions when the day will come when they will be able to defeat the powerful demon. Suta's group hears someone screaming from afar, asking them to save her. Sotou immediately ran towards the direction from which the scream came. Aphrodite remembers the voice and says that it sounds like the girl from the gun shop. It was Seal asking what the men were trying to do to her. The man grabbed Seal's hand and told her to follow her and they would talk in their office. Sotou realizes that this girl is being threatened and everyone is pretending not to notice. He wonders what needs to happen to make this world safe. The young man asks if Aphrodite and Caroline can wait a little in the ball capsule, because he is afraid that it will be very troublesome there. The girls agree and say that they leave everything to the young man. After a while, Sotou intervenes in the conversation and asks if the man has any problems. He asks who he is. Seal recognizes the young man as Sotou and asks for help. The man starts shouting that he doesn't know who this guy is, but threatens him not to interfere at the wrong time. The young man thinks to himself that the man should calm down, because rudeness will only make the situation worse, so he needs to be polite. He asks why he needs to talk like that, and asks what happened to them. The man hissed and said that Sotou was being very pushy, and that this fuss wasn't worth his extra attention, because he was just doing his job, which was collecting debts and showing the young man the loan agreement. He then points to Seal and says that her father, who died, took out a loan of 3 million coal and then went into hiding. Sotou says that he understands the situation, but he also says that the man doesn't think that such a large amount of money is very difficult to pay back at once. He points to the shop and says that he recommended Seal to sell the mossy shop to pay off the debt faster. Seal shouts that he will never do that. She explains that she got this shop from her teacher, so she can't just give it away. The man says that if that's the case, then there's no other way out except for Seal to become a slave and pay back the debt with her body. The girl says she is ready to pay if the man splits the debt into several months. She will not be able to pay the whole amount at once. The man says that the girl has become boring to him and that his job requires him to pay it all back. He threatens that he will not agree to her conditions, and if they had not missed out on a very expensive slave, they would have negotiated more, and their company's business would have gone from strength to strength. He also wonders where Bakra is in these difficult times. Suddenly, Sotou recognizes the name. This is the man he caught and then crossed with a wolf. Finally, Sotou realized that he was the only one to blame for all this fuss. According to this man's story, the male slave shop, Bakra shop, did not receive the money they were going to get from selling Caroline. It seems that Seal is now in trouble because of this. In other words, it all happened because he decided to intervene and save Carly. He also turned Bakra into a werewolf. It turns out that he must take responsibility for himself, so the young man offers to pay off the debt to him instead of Seal. Sotou looks like an adventurer with poor equipment, so he won't be able to do anything. Sotou knows that it's not that easy to raise 3 million coal, but he has one way. As he says this, he recalls an unusual task at the Adventurers Guild. Sotou asks a man to wait 3 days, and he will definitely collect 3 million coal. The man says that this will not work. Why should they wait, and what will they get out of it? Sotou digs into his pocket and pulls out an object, saying that this should convince the man. The object turned out to be a coin. The young man said it was a prepayment. If he broke his promise, the man could keep the coin. The man smiles and says that in that case he will wait 3 days, but he really doesn't think that it will change anything. The girl approaches Sotou, hinting that he shouldn't pay her debt. The boy tells Seal to leave it to him. He uses the contact skill to contact Aphrodite and Caroline and tells them that it's time to move out because they are heading to Casella Forest. Defeating the basilisk will bring them a lot of money. After some time in the forest of Casella, Ciel went with them. She says that Sotou-san is crazy. She then talks about the basilisk and explains that this monster is very famous among blacksmiths. It has very strong scales, which are used as material for high-class armor worn by royal knights. This monster is difficult to deal with even for a group of adventurers. The young man replies that if she thinks so, she could wait in the city. Seal gets mad and says that she couldn't do that because it's her and her teacher's problem. If she not only got other people involved, but also made others suffer, then she won't be able to face her teacher. Sotou gets distracted and asks why little Seal is running the store alone, meaning where her teacher is now. Seal replies that even she doesn't know that now. Her master was not only an amazing blacksmith, but also an adventurer. 2 years ago, her master went to pacify monsters and the connection with him was broken. Sotou says he understands everything, but he wants Seal not to worry, because he is very super strong and won't lose to some basilisk. Seal was touched by his words. The girl awkwardly apologizes and says that her words may seem harsh, but in her eyes, Sotou does not look so strong. It was a straight knife to the heart. Then the goddess Aphrodite intervenes in the conversation and says that Ciel is absolutely right because he looks completely unreliable. However, she wants Seal to be calm because the goddess is an ally of Sotou, the goddess of love and beauty Aphrodite. The girl puts her hand on her chest and laughs. Seal starts screaming because Aphrodite introduced herself as an Olympian goddess. The girl says that even though she is a village girl, she won't be fooled by such a trick. Sotou realizes that D is very famous. Aphrodite flared up with anger. She wants to prove that she belongs to the gods. The girl tries to think of a way to prove it. She says that under her clothes, Ciel is very beautiful and has a good body. She also adds that she is a size 3 and her measurements are 86 to 53-83. Ciel tries to find out how the girl found out about this. Aphrodite replies that only gods have this ability, and she has the eye of a god, so with this ability she can see right through Ciel, even the color of her clothes. Ciel asks if the eye of God's skill is really something only gods have. Aphrodite says that everything is correct, and the color of Ciel's clothes is white. The girl became embarrassed. She also adds that Ciel should wear more or less nice clothes. The girl tries to make Aphrodite shut up and not say another word. Sotou interrupts the conversation and asks them to wait. He also asks if Aphrodite didn't say that, after being launched to Earth, she was cursed and can no longer use her skills. The girl replies that, although she said so, Soutou's ball capsule has a powerful healing effect that gradually removes curses, so in fact, this skill returned to her only recently. However, Sotou points out that in addition to Ciel size 3, Aphrodite also saw the color of her clothes. Her skill is an improved version of his piercing eye. The girl replies that the boy is right. The young man thought to himself that he also wanted such a skill. At that moment, the girl answered that if Sotou wanted to use her skill, then he should now fall down to kiss her feet and beg her, calling her Lady Aphrodite to grant him her power. Sotou giggles awkwardly and says that he will do it the next time he gets the chance, but he thinks to himself that he wants this skill so much that he is ready to kiss even the goddess's boots because he is very interested in knowing what color the girls in the city are wearing. However, if he does this, the girls around him will look at me as a terrible person. He covers his ears with his hands and thinks he's going to go crazy with envy. He is pulled out of his thoughts by Carolina. She puts her fist to her mouth and says that she is wearing black today. The young man imagines the color black and peacefully thanks her in his thoughts. Aphrodite changes the subject and asks if they will split up this time. The youth replies that they will not split up because who knows when the basilisk will catch up with them. Sotou says that the basilisk is a very dangerous opponent since it costs 3 million coal, so they should be careful and stick together. Suddenly, Sotou hears some rustling from the bushes. The next moment, a pack of wolves, 7 in number, appears from the bushes. Normally, the boy would have caught them in a capsule, but this was a good opportunity to summon the goblin knights. He summons the goblin knights to show off their new gear. The goblins then use their new weapons, a sword, a spear, and a mace. After a while, the young man looked around the battlefield and saw that the new equipment was simply magnificent, because the goblins dealt with the wolves in the blink of an eye. He thanks the goblins for their excellent work, and the monsters are happy because they were praised. Suddenly, the young man notices that one wolf has survived. Suddenly, Caroline bursts in and asks the owner if he doesn't mind. Could he leave this wolf with her? The young man replies that he doesn't care, but also wonders why she needs it. The girl replies that vampires need to drink animal blood from time to time, and wolf blood is very nutritious food for them. The girl says that it makes no difference to him, so he allows the girl to do as she pleases. Carolina thanks the young man. Suddenly, everyone is silent, and Suda asks why the girl doesn't drink wolf blood. She awkwardly replies that, to be honest, it embarrasses her a little, so she asks to turn away for a moment. Suda agrees and turns away. He remembers that the girl named the color of her clothes, but was embarrassed to show herself at the meal. The young man thought she was strange. At this moment, something appeared on the horizon. Carolina, noticing this creature, began to scream for the owner of Su to look up. Suddenly, a basilisk falls from the sky, a level 24, Class B monster. It had very high stats, especially survivability and magic power, and its skills included fire breathing. The young man looks at the sky in horror and notices the high characteristics of the monster. Suddenly, the monster uses fire breath. Suta tells the girls that it's too dangerous here, so they should return to the ball capsule. He then orders the goblin knights to return to safety. The goblins accept the command and pick up CL to lead her away. The boy squeezes the ball capsule and then throws it straight at the basilisk, calling his throw fatal. He thinks that no matter how high his stats are, if the ball hits him directly, it will absorb him. Suddenly, the basilisk creates an air current with its wings and then knocks the capsule away. Aphrodite screams at Suda not to do anything stupid, and Carolina screams at him to run away at least once. The young man thinks that he would like to do this, but as soon as he turns his back to the basilisk, it will immediately kill him, so he needs to figure out what Suda should do now. Suddenly, the basilisk rushes past Suda, grabs the wolf's body, and flies into the air. The young man understands, looking at the flying basilisk, that it initially wanted to drag away the wolf's corpse. It was a relief, he thought. Then, when Aphrodite and Caroline left the capsule, the young man apologized to Carly, saying that the basilisk had stolen the girl's food. The girl said that it was nothing to worry about, and the main thing was that the owner was safe. Suda tries to figure out how they can defeat this monster, since the difference in strength is so great. Suddenly, his thoughts are interrupted by Carolina, who asks for forgiveness. She approaches the young man and says that she smells something on the gentleman's left hand. Presumably, there is blood there. She asks him to let her take care of his wound. The boy didn't even notice the wound. He looked at it and realized that it must have happened when he dodged the basilisk's blow. He notes that Caroline noticed the wound very quickly. The girl says that nothing special, because vampires smell blood very well, so she quickly found the source. The young man says that it turns out that the girl can smell the blood of the wolf that was just dragged away by the basilisk. The girl responds positively, noting that she clearly remembers the smell, so she wonders if she'll be able to recognize it at a distance of 200 meters. Suda realizes that this way, they will be able to come up with tactics for the group, because thanks to Carolina's senses, they will be able to determine the location of the basilisk's lair. He takes Caroline by the hands and thanks her, saying that he is happy that they have become friends. The girl blushed and could not utter a word. He turns to Aphrodite and says that he wishes their goddess was as useful as Caroline. The girl twitches and then starts screaming that Suda is allowing himself to do this because she is also useful, so she asks the young man to give her a task to show herself. Suda folds his arms and says that he has a very important job that he would like to entrust to the goddess because it is not such a dangerous job for such a girl. She says that the boy underestimates her. After all, she is a goddess, so there is no job she cannot handle. The girl says that she will show everything she is capable of. Suda smirks and says that the girl has given her word. He then turns to Seal and asks if she can do something for him. The girl agrees. Now they have everything they need for the operation to capture the basilisk. Suda's group reached the basilisk's lair in the form of a huge tree. Suda says the area stinks. He looked at the tree branches and realized the basilisk was impaling corpses on tree branches. As far as he remembers, this was done in the Middle Ages. He turns to the girls and says it's time to start preparing for the operation before the basilisk notices them. Aphrodite says to leave everything to her. After some time, Aphrodite was tied to a tree. She did not understand what all this meant. Suda asks if she didn't say she would do anything. Aphrodite starts screaming that it's true, but the boy didn't say he was using her as bait. She called Suda the devil incarnate. Seal didn't think the boy would use her rope like that. The young man said that the goddess should listen to him. He himself is not pleased, but only such a goddess of beauty as Aphrodite can do this difficult job. The girl awkwardly repeats Sauda's words. The young man begins to firmly say that everything is exactly like this, and he plans to call this operation the Temptation of the Basilisk. He continues saying that, how can an ordinary girl seduce a monster? No, it is impossible, but Aphrodite can do it, because she is the great goddess of beauty. The girl agrees, and says that she has no choice. Since Suda can't do anything without her, she will have to take matters into her own hands. The young man thanks her for constantly helping him out, but he thinks to himself that it's all a blatant lie. To be honest, he doesn't think that this monster is able to distinguish the appearance of a beautiful girl from an ugly one, but he needs bait anyway. After being launched to this land, Aphrodite lost her powers, but retained a large reserve of vitality. If so, she would hardly suffer in the event of some unlikely problems in the situation, so he chose her for this role. Meanwhile, Caroline says that her master dared to do such a bold and decisive act, as expected from a powerful demon. Seal was in a panic, because how could one tie a goddess to a tree and use her as bait? Suda thinks that he does it not without a sense of guilt, but this time he had no other choice. He looks at the happy Aphrodite and feels awkward. He thinks that after all this he will buy her everything she asks for. After a while, Suda orders the goblins to listen to him. He explains that the basilisk is the most dangerous monster they have ever encountered, so the task will be dangerous. He asks if he can count on them. The goblins respond enthusiastically. Suda thanks them and suggests they begin implementing the plan. He feels the wind is blowing in the right direction, looking at the basilisk. First, he wants to start by using the skill where he attacks with the spores of the mad mushroom. This way, he wants to lure the basilisk out of its hiding place. Mushroom successfully uses his skill on a basilisk that is dozing among the branches of a tree. This wakes the basilisk up. It flies up again, and its status indicates that the monster is agitated. Suda understands that the mushroom skill worked. In his mind, he tells Aphrodite that it is her turn. She must lure the basilisk to her. The girl agrees. She throws off her hair ribbon and calls for the basilisk to come to her and seize her. She suggests that he do it. At one point, the girl sees an enraged monster rushing towards her at breakneck speed. Looking at his face, the girl is horrified and asks Suda to save her. Aphrodite continued to scream for Suda to save her from the terrible basilisk. The young man used the skill Contra to order the goblins to attack the basilisk. The monsters immediately began to carry out this order. They block it with their wooden shields. Basilisk didn't expect that. Suda realizes that this is his only chance. Using the skill Counter, he summons a crazy mushroom from a ball capsule and orders it to use spores. The goblins throw the small monster. He immediately uses his spores on the huge monster. The basilisk uses its wings to push away the mad mushroom's spores. Sauda realizes that the basilisk still has the strength to fight back. He then orders the goblins to attack the basilisk. The little monsters grab the weakened basilisk in a heap. The young man thinks that if the basilisk manages to escape, then their entire operation will fail. However, he hopes that they will succeed. Suddenly, the basilisk acquires the exhaustion status. Suda, noticing this, uses the skill Contact and tells Carolina that it is her turn to attack. The girl nods and agrees. The girl jumps from one of the branches of a nearby tree and soars right above the basilisk. She then lifts her leg and attacks the basilisk's head with all her might, causing a loud thud to echo throughout the area. Carolina managed to pierce the basilisk's head, and blood began to flow from the wound. The monster lost consciousness. Aphrodite, Seal, and most importantly, Suda, froze at that moment. A moment later, they all shouted that they had managed to defeat the huge basilisk. After a while, in the Adventurers Guild, everyone was whispering behind Suda's back. No one could believe that some newbie could defeat that very basilisk. Chloe beamed and put her hands together. She said that Suda was amazing because he was able to tame the basilisk itself. The girl says awkwardly that the young man's reward of 3 million coal will be delivered tomorrow because it is a large sum and they will not bring it right now. The young man looks at his profile and thinks that now he can solve the problem with Seal's debt. It was a dangerous quest, but he is glad that he took it on and even raised it thanks to the victory over the basilisk. Seal approaches the boy and thanks him. She also adds that she doesn't know what she would do without him. The girl asks how she can thank the boy. Suda replies that she shouldn't, because without the help of Carolina and the monsters, he wouldn't have managed at all. Aphrodite runs up to the young man and says that the young man is completely stunned because he was able to forget about her. The young man says that he completely forgot about it because the beauty of the goddess Aphrodite also helped him. Suddenly, Chloe approaches the boy and says that Suta once mentioned that the dead basilisk impaled the corpses on tree branches. The boy confirms that this happened, which is why there was a very strong smell. The girl replies that this is usually what basilisks do when they are preparing to have offspring, so it can be assumed that the basilisk was female. Suta and Aphrodite were very surprised. Aphrodite began to ask what all this meant, and why then this basilisk tried to attack her. The young man thinks that perhaps Dee's beauty had nothing to do with it, and the basilisk simply wanted to make a food supply out of her for its offspring, so it was too much. He calls Aphrodite and says that such behavior of the female basilisk means that the goddess's charm works even on her sex. The girl blushes and says that this means that she can seduce even women. Suta smiles, and secretly he is glad that Aphrodite is so easy to fool. The next day, Suta's group received 3 million coal, and with peace of mind, they went to the Bakraji farm with Seal, so for some time they were at the eastern branch of the Bakraji company. Suta thought that Ciel's sadness had dissipated, and that her freedom was no longer in danger. However, the man who had previously threatened Suta and Ciel said that it wouldn't work because the bag didn't contain everything, although it should have 3 million coal. The man responds by asking if the boy is familiar with the word interest. He also says that he admires the fact that they have collected such a large sum in such a short time, but the amount of debt cannot stand still. The boy asks again about the interest, and then asks how much they still owe. The man starts counting, and then says that they still owe about 3 million coal. Suta is shocked. The man says, relaxed, that if they bring this amount, the topic of new slaves will be closed forever. Suta understands that the man did not initially intend to fulfill his promise and decided to change the rules during the game. The boy started shouting, demanding answers as to why such demands were made. At this time, Ciel took out a bag and said that he would pay and that the bag contained 3 million coal. She says she wanted to give them to Suta because at least she is free now. The man rummages through the bag and can't believe his eyes. Ciel bows, apologizing for the long delay in paying, and then turns around and heads for the exit. The man quickly flew up and stood right in front of Ciel. He shouted that there was a mistake and he miscalculated, because in fact, the debt percentage is 5 million coal. He says that it is time to fill out the form for a new product. Suta wonders to himself how long this man will be so impudent, since they have already paid twice as much. He thinks that this is not right. He also considers that it was probably agreed upon before the loan that the contract could not be terminated, so talking to him would only be a waste of time. The man then becomes annoyed that Suta and Ciel are silent, so he takes out a knife from his jacket and tells Suta to go get the money and Ciel to stay here. Suta shouts for Ciel to go behind him. The girl is very worried, but the young man smiles and says that everything is fine, because he once said that you can't tell from the outside, but he is very strong. The girl believes his words. The man asks the boy if he wants to dance, but the boy just smirks. He takes out his ball capsule and says that he has someone suitable to teach this man a lesson. The young man then summons the werewolf and orders him to attack. In one moment, the werewolf swings and hits the man in the face. He flies with great force straight into the wall. Suta asks how he got hit by Bakraji. As he leaves, he turns around and tells the man to keep the money, but in return, he will no longer appear in his life and the lives of his comrades. After a while, the boy asks Ciel if she really sold the weapon shop. The girl replies that it is true. She sold it right after returning and also had time to think about it during the mission. The young man realized that Ciel got those 3 million coal from selling the shop. He asks if that's okay, since the shop was very important to Ciel because it belonged to her master. The girl smiles and says that she couldn't go looking because she was always busy working in the shop, but looking for the master is much more important than working in the shop. Suta says he understands, and adds that it was a good decision. He's sure that Master Ciel wouldn't want her to spend her entire life in that shop. Ciel then turns to Suta, pulling him out of his thoughts, and says that she wanted to ask him something. Suta could take her with him. The young man is surprised, and decides to clarify whether the girl really wants to go on a trip with him. Ciel replies that even though the only thing she can do for the journey is create and repair things, she could become a personal blacksmith for Suta's company. He insists, saying that she is confident in her suitability for the group, but she also adds that this is a way to repay the group for helping her. Suta says that this is a very good offer. However, he adds that the purpose of their journey is to defeat a powerful demon, so he wonders if the girl understands how dangerous it can be. Ciel says that she doesn't care about the purpose of the journey and how many difficulties and dangers they will encounter along the way, even the mighty demon himself, but the main thing for her is to find her master. Suta asks if the girl wants it that way, then she is ready for anything. Seal replies that it is absolutely so. The young man asks the girl to turn away for a second, and she complies. Suta then touches Seal with his ball sphere. The girl turns around because a bright light is formed behind her. Suddenly she moves to some clearing and tries to understand where she ended up. Suddenly, she sees Aphrodite and Caroline. The girls who were peacefully resting in the sphere are surprised by Seal's sudden appearance here. The girl starts shaking her head and asks what Suta did to her. The boy uses the skill Contact to address the girl and asks if she can hear him. Seal can't understand how Suta ended up in her head. He says that if the girl wants to get out of there, she should tell him right away and he will let her out. If she wants to say something, she should use telepathy, concentrating on it, and the young man will hear her voice in his head. The girl, after listening to him, asks why the young man placed her inside the capsule, but Suta replies that it is more convenient this way. The young man says that traveling is associated with great risk, and the ball capsule is able to protect the girl. In addition, if she gets tired of walking, she will be able to rest inside the capsule. Also inside the capsule, Seal will be able to heal his wounds or illness, and also satisfy his hunger. Seal is surprised by this. She nodded, realizing that it did make sense. Aphrodite and Caroline, who were watching from the side, were surprised at how beautifully Suta had veiled everything. Meanwhile, the young man, picking up the capsule, said that thanks to this agreement, he now has a pretty blacksmith girl in the women's group. This is simply excellent. The next morning, Suta wakes up from something pushing him out of bed and onto the floor. Waking up, he looked around and saw the sweet face of the goddess Aphrodite, who was sleeping peacefully. The girl softly said the protagonist's name, which made Suta blush, but later she asked in her sleep if her breakfast was ready. At that moment, Caroline and Seal were sleeping next to Aphrodite. Caroline was giggling in her sleep, saying that she was so happy that her master had shown his true face, and Seal was dreaming something obscene because she called Suta an animal. Suta looked at the overall picture, where Caroline was sleeping against the wall, Seal was in the middle, and Aphrodite was lying on the edge. It was she who pushed the boy. Suta tried to understand what the girls were dreaming about. Blushing, he wondered why they were all here. Of course, there was nothing better than sleeping with such beauties, but it was impossible to sleep with them in any sense. After some time, the young man told the girl, when they had already woken up, that they were having a hard time getting up, but before they set off on their journey, he wanted to tell them something. Aphrodite, rubbing her eyes, asked what kind of formality this was. Suta said that the girls used to always sleep in the capsule, but lately they've been constantly going outside to sleep, so he wants the girls to explain to him why they do that. Aphrodite says that, of course, it is very comfortable inside the capsule, but she is very tired of being limited by the capsule. The young man then asks Caroline's opinion. The girl replies that her task was to watch Aphrodite so that she, having sniffed the mushrooms, would not attack her master with animal instinct. The girl was very indignant and started yelling at Carolina for remembering that incident. She said that she had no need to attack Suta. The young man asked Seal's opinion. The girl answered that if he had allowed her to take blacksmith tools into the capsule, she might not have had to leave, but she was still lonely there without the girls. The young man says that he understands everything and thinks to himself that the girls have good reasons. But it all starts with Aphrodite being the first to get out of the capsule, and, if you think about it, the ideal solution would be to arrange the capsule from the inside. After some time, the young man asked the three girls what items they wanted in the capsule. Aphrodite, smiling, says that she wants a soft and fluffy bed like the one she had in heaven, so she would be infinitely happy. Carolina said that her heart would be glad to receive anything from the owner, but most of all she would like to have books, and if she had a mini library with different editions, she would be able to endure the absence of neighbors. Sile said that she knows exactly what she wants. She wants to be given materials to create a new weapon, because when she works with high-quality materials, she loses track of time. After a while, the young man had a whole list of new purchases. Suta was surprised by the girl's requests, because even with money, it is not easy. He understands that it seems that the mighty demon has not yet risen, and he will not be able to do it quickly. So for now, he can take care of the lady's desires, as well as take on a new quest. Life is returning to its banks. After some time, Chloe congratulated Suta, because for completing the quest, his adventurer rank was raised to F rank. The young man represents the rank system from rank G, which is the lowest rank, to rank S, which is already the highest rank. He rubs the back of his head and says that it turns out that it's pretty good. Chloe says that on average, it takes a year for a new adventurer to rise to F rank. The girl adds that Suta's leveling speed is simply amazing. Apparently, his recent victory over the basilisk influenced such rapid growth. Due to his rank increase, more quests are now available to the young man, so she suggests that he take a look at the task board. 10 minutes later, the young man stood at the board and assigned himself 5 tasks: collecting iron ore, mining copper ore, collecting silver ore, collecting gold ore, and collecting platinum ore. The rewards were that money was given per gram of ore. The young man looked at these tasks with delight and realized that these were simply incredible quests, since they smelled of easy money. The reward for iron ore is not very big, but for platinum they will give fabulous money, as much as 600 coal per gram. However, platinum ore is not so easy to find, but if they succeed, they will quickly get rich. Even if he doesn't succeed, Seal's skills could be very useful to them this time. The boy gives Chloe the sheets of paper with the tasks and says that he is ready to take on these quests. Chloe says that these quests are about mining ore in the Ares mine. She asks if the boy has a pickaxe and a lantern. Suda says that he does not have either. Chloe says that since both of these items are needed for the quest, she suggests that he buy them right now. The pickaxe will cost him 5,000 coal, and the Faranya will cost him 2,000 coal. Suda adds up the numbers and says that for 4 people, it will cost 28,000 coal. He says that none of this matters, because even though these expenses were necessary, he will still be able to extract more ore and will come out on top. 2 hours later, they stood at the Ares mine. Aphrodite says she's seeing the mine for the first time, and it reminds her a bit of cheese with holes. Caroline says many miners came to the Ares mine from the city of St. Bell to earn money. However, earthquakes often occur here, and monsters appear in droves, so the task of mining the ore has been entrusted to adventurers. Suda notes that Carolina knows a lot about this world. The girl thanks the boy for the praise, but she says that in matters of working in the mine, Suda should ask Seal for help. The boy turns to the girl and asks if this place is different from Seal's shop, but notices the girl shaking, so he asks what's wrong with her. Suddenly, the girl started screaming with joy. She says that she is very happy because she hasn't been in the mine for a long time. Suta didn't understand why the girl was so into it. At one point, Suda decides to ask if it's true that Seal's race really likes rocks and earth, because as far as he knows, games often make cliches like that, so it's better to ask. The girl confirms this theory. The girl says that the dwarves come from the same tribe known as the spirits of the earth, so the ore brings them great pleasure. If they find good quality ore, Seal doesn't even know if he can control himself. Suda imagines a picture of Seal eating good ore, but tells himself that jokes should be put aside, as he hopes that won't happen. However, it does give him some motivation. He tells everyone that it's time to start going to farm money and become rich, and together they set off to search for ore. After some time, the heroes were already in one of the mine caves. The young man said that it was quite dark in the cave. He takes out a spherical sphere and says that the lanterns he bought from the Adventurers Guild could come in handy right now. Fortunately, they could be placed in a capsule. Suddenly, Carolina calls him and asks Suda to give it to her. The next moment, she summons a small glowing ball. Suda asks Carolina what this glowing ball is. The girl explains that it can be used to light one's way in the dark for a short distance, and with the help of magic, its operation can be maintained for about 8 hours. Suda immediately felt downcast, because if he had known about this earlier, he would never have bought those lanterns from the Adventurers Guild. The young man even thought that it would be great for him to have such a glowing ball. He thanks Carly for this glowing ball, and the girl thanks him for the praise. Suddenly, Aphrodite calls Suda from the side. The young man asks the girl not to make noise and asks if she has already started collecting ore. The goddess says that she has even managed to find something. She shows the boy a pile of G-rank stones, but unfortunately, they are ordinary stones with no special features. Suda, hissing, says that these are ordinary stones. Aphrodite is very surprised and says that this is not true because these stones are very shiny. Suda asks Aphrodite to check these stones with her divine sight, because now her skill will be more useful than ever. The girl says that she can, but this skill requires too much mana, so she will not use it unless necessary. The young man thinks that he also has a divine eye, though a little worse than Aphrodite's, but at least it will be of some use. He goes and sees the characteristics of any stone. For example, the first thing he came across was iron ore, which contains a small amount of iron. He gives it to Ciel and asks if it is possible to sell this stone. The girl says, apologetically, that she is afraid, but nothing will come of it. Apparently, it was thrown away by other adventurers, which means that they themselves could not have made money from it, otherwise they would have kept it for themselves. The young man stands up and says that this means that all the valuable ore was mined by other adventurers before his group. Such thoughts immediately make you want to give up everything and go home. Suddenly, Ciel says that there are no problems because they can mine the ore themselves. The girl swings her pickaxe, making a knocking sound. She shows F-rank copper ore and iron ore and says that they will mine the ore themselves. Everyone was amazed. Suda asks how the girl knew where the ore was. Ciel explains that her race loves ore, so she can determine where the ore is by smell. Suda's spirits immediately perked up. He realized that Ciel had a special skill, and with this girl's help, they could earn a lot of money. He turns to the girl and looks at her with wild eyes, saying that this is their chance. He asks if the girl can show them where the ore deposits are. Ciel says that she can help them, but she also mentions that Suda scares her a lot because he is so close. The boy realizes that he was blinded by the desire for money, so he apologizes to the girl. He wipes his forehead and thinks that if Ciel hates him, he will not help him. Aphrodite, watching everything, says, turning to Caroline, "Are they thinking about the same thing now?" The girl answers that it could be. Aphrodite thinks that she can't lose to Ciel, and Caroline thinks that she won't let anyone take her master for themselves. Together, the girls shout that they will get a lot of ore too. The goddess Aphrodite and the demon Caroline stand with pickaxes and are simply glowing with motivation. Ciel does not understand what is happening, and Suda is happy that Aphrodite and Caroline are full of inspiration. After a while, Ciel says he can smell ore behind the stone wall. The boy tells Ciel to start digging, but Aphrodite intervenes and tells Suda to trust her with the job. She saw Ciel using a pickaxe, so she thinks she can do it too. Suda is surprised by such an unexpected proposal and asks if Aphrodite is serious now. The girl says that she is absolutely serious, because at one time she had a nickname, Aphrodite the Gatherer, because while other gods were fighting the boss, she was collecting very rare gems. Suda realized that she was talking about a game, and his hopes disappeared. The girl says that Suda is about to see what she is capable of. Then, with a divine attack cry, she slams her pickaxe into the stone wall. The young man notices that the girl's entire body is shaking divinely. Suddenly, Ciel interrupts them and says that Aphrodite can damage the ore if she hits it hard. The girl asks if it's really that bad, to which Ciel says that it is very bad, so she asks to show how to do it. Suta realizes that, as expected of Ciel, she is a professional at this. Meanwhile, Aphrodite tries to figure out what to do next. Suddenly, Suda remembers Carolina and tries to figure out what she's doing. Meanwhile, the girl uses magic and makes a huge hole in the wall. Ciel starts yelling at Caroline, asking what she's doing. Caroline replies that digging with tools isn't very effective, so wouldn't it be easier to extract the ore with magic? Ciel asks her not to do this again because she can destroy the ore. Then the girl can't stand it anymore and asks Aphrodite and Caroline to sit in the corner and not interfere. 3 hours later, there was a pile of iron ore and Class F copper ore lying next to Suda. The young man thought they had done a pretty good job. The girl approaches Suda and asks if she can take some more. Suda says that of course she can, but he asks why she wants it. The girl says that she wants to make a new weapon for the goblins, and considering how much they got today, she will be able to make a lot of weapons. Suda says that would be great. He spares no expense to strengthen his goblins, so with Ciel's skills, their business will soon improve. Then Suda asks if the girls have seen Aphrodite. Carolina answers that Aphrodite decided to look for the ore herself because she also wants to help. Suda thinks that this is very good, but he has a very bad feeling. Suddenly, they hear a scream from the depths of the cave. They all run towards the scream. Suda tries to understand what happened there and then shouts to Aphrodite that they are already close. The boy sees the following image. Aphrodite is captured by crazy F-class puppets with high durability. The girl asks Suta to save her. The young man understands that he has seen exactly the same picture somewhere before, that someone grabbed Aphrodite. Suta looks at what is happening in surprise and says that these monsters, these crazy puppets, are really cool guys. Carolina pulls Suta out of her thoughts. He throws the ball capsule straight at the puppets, screaming at them to let go of his companion. After a while, the puppets release Aphrodite from their stone hands. Suda sees them running away, letting go of the goddess of beauty, Aphrodite. Carolina puts on a serious expression and says that there is no escaping her, and then activates the magic, binding puppets to the icy bonds. Suda notices that the girl has ice magic. Carolina tells the master to show these vile creatures his power. Suda thinks that Carolina is excellent as always. He thanks the girl and throws his capsule at the two remaining puppets, who are encased in ice and unable to move. The capsule eventually contained 3 captured puppets. After a few hours, a huge pile of various ores was collected. Suta says that they worked hard, and in his mind, he thinks that they also managed to catch the 3 puppets. Aphrodite says that her legs can't hold her anymore. Seal says that she's also very tired. The young man says that they can go to the capsule to rest, and he will inform the girls when they get to the hotel. Coming out of the mine, the young man thinks that he does not feel his body. Mining is not a game. Coming out of the cave, he thinks that there is space around and there is not a single soul. Sitting down on a nearby rock, the young man thinks that he will play with Monster Crossing a little before returning. So now he has a choice with 5 crazy puppets. He wants to try the company, Crazy Puppet, with Crazy Puppet. He soon gets a monster called E-Class Evil Rebel. It had high survivability, but no skills. The description said that if they were crossed with each other, they could produce a very powerful monster. The young man looks at the new monster and thinks that it looks like a very harmless minion. He also notices the strange wording from the crossing of 2 evil rebels. He wonders what might happen if 2 evil rocks were crossed. The young man decides to try crossing them. The end result is a huge monster called a golem. Its class was level D. The monster had enormous physical strength, but its skills were absent. The young man notices the parameter of its physical strength and understands that it is the most powerful monster in his collection. However, the note that if 2 golems are crossed, a very strong monster can be obtained has not disappeared, so it can be concluded that this is not its final form. He understands that the evolution of this stone is not yet complete, so the young man decided that from tomorrow he will open the hunt for crazy puppets. After a while, he came out of the Adventurers Guild and looked at his main reward of 36,000 coal. If converted into yen, it would be a little less than 40,000. And yet it is not very profitable because the price for iron and copper ore is very small. Next time he is going to immediately take on silver and gold ore. He goes and thinks that even a little bit of gold will somehow satisfy Chloe's request, because Suda wants to see her smile. The next morning, Aphrodite asked what was wrong with Suda and why he suddenly decided to buy a new bed. Suda also bought Aphrodite new clothes, namely the E-rank dancer outfit that the girl once wanted. Suda asks if the girl remembers the incident with the basilisk, because that was when he promised to buy her something new for the girl who had gone all out back then. The girl blushes, rubbing her cheek, and then shows herself to Suda in all her glory and asks him how he likes her new outfit. The young man says that he has nothing to say because everything is fine. The girl does not understand what he means. Then the young man says that he does not understand what she is angry about because she is as pretty and sweet as always, so any outfit will suit her. Aphrodite immediately blushed and said that she hadn't thought that Suda thought that way. The young man said that of course he thought that way, and he was also going to go to the Ares mine again. He grabs her hand and says that this is why they should finish shopping quickly. The girl is embarrassed by this action, and Suta resolutely sets off because today is just the right time. After some time, they arrived at the guild's magic tool shop. They were greeted by a friendly young man who asked what Suda and Aphrodite would like to buy. The young man said indifferently that he was looking for a bed as big and soft as possible. The young consultant began to grin and said that he understood everything and then invited them to follow him to another department. The young man did not understand why everyone around him was staring at him. The male consultant said that they had all the beds here, but he would like to recommend to buyers a bed using one of the rarest materials, angel cotton. Suddenly, it dawned on Suda because the guy and the girl came to buy a bed together. Now everyone probably thinks that he is dating Aphrodite, or even that they are married. Consultant pulls him out of his thoughts. He says that he recommends buying this bed. It is made of very good materials, including angel cotton. While sleeping on this bed, they will feel like they are in heaven. Suda realizes that the bed looks very luxurious and then decides to look at the price. The price of this bed made of 100% angel cotton is 1,200,000 coal. Suddenly, Aphrodite tells the consultant not to try to deceive them. The man asks if the girl really didn't like the bed. Aphrodite says that it looks like they'll have to call in an explanatory team. She says she means angel cotton in this bed. From what she can see, it's only 30% angel cotton. The other 70% is Ashira down. She wouldn't say it's bad material, but the man claims the bed is made of angel cotton, so it smells like a scam. The girl adds, speaking about the pillows, that they are made of absolutely no one knows what. In this store, it seems as if there are inappropriate materials everywhere, so she does not know how to choose what they need. Suda stands aside and wonders, this is amazing, and who would have thought that Aphrodite knows anything about anything? Finally, she's somewhat useful. Aphrodite clearly doesn't like that the seller is trying to scam them, so they need to sort this out quickly, and Suda can't afford a bed that costs 1,200,000 coal. He is about to leave when the man starts shouting for the young man and the girl to wait. He says that they have another bed, the quality of which he is ready to vouch for completely. He also says that this is the best bed in their store and is perfect for a married couple. These words surprise Aphrodite. Suda understands that even the seller took them for a couple, but it is not so. Aphrodite repeats the words of the seller and says to show this bed to them. The man thanks the girl. After a while, the man shows them a luxurious bed and says that it is made using the spores of a crazy mushroom. Thanks to them, this bed will bring the couple new sexual desires every night. Aphrodite blushed and said that the bed looked amazing. Suda started shouting that they would never buy it. The man says that he is not talking to him, but to the girl. Aphrodite told Suda not to interfere because she is having a business conversation with this man. The young man does not understand why the girl is interested in such things, and if he does not intervene, it will turn his life into a living hell. He understands that there is nothing he can do and will have to resort to submission, so he orders Aphrodite to come to him. The girl comes up to him, and Suda hugs her. She blushes all over, and Unosha thinks it's nice. The man became nervous. But the young man put his hand out and said that this bed was not suitable for them, since they were fine with this, so he told the man to keep this bed for himself. The man bows and asks for forgiveness for his rudeness, and all the girls in the area squeal with delight. Suda says that the shopping was a failure. He says that they will have to sleep on the old bed for a while. The girl says that is true. The young man thinks that because he called himself Aphrodite's boyfriend, she was not very offended by this, and by the fact that he pressed her to himself. Suda realized that he needed to give her something again. Meanwhile, the girl thought that hugging the guy was nice. Later, in the ore mine, Aphrodite was wielding a pickaxe and singing a song about how the beautiful goddess was named Aphrodite, and they bought her a nice dress because Suda liked her the most. The boy wondered what was wrong with the goddess. He thought she would be upset because they couldn't buy a new bed, but she was suddenly in a good mood. Carolina called Aphrodite and asked what the strange song was. It was distracting her from her work. Aphrodite winked and said that Caroline was afraid that she would take Suda away from her. The young man realized that this was too direct. Carolina said that if the goddess speaks of this, she does not know yet because she has always been faithful to the powerful demon and has loved him unrequitedly for over 300 years. Suda realized that he also wanted a partner who would love him for the rest of his life. He realized that he was jealous. Aphrodite giggled and said that she would tell Caroline a little secret. It was written all over her face that she was a loser in love affairs. Suda realizes that the atmosphere is getting tense and needs to change the subject. He turns to CL and says that he wanted to ask her something. He says that he wants to get gold and platinum ore today, so he asks CL if she knows how to get it. The girl says that it will be very difficult. Other adventurers are also looking to extract the expensive ore, so the deposits here may already be exhausted. However, if they put in more effort and go down the mine, they may be able to figure out something and find the ore they need, but the deeper they go down the mine, the higher the risk. The young man says that he understands everything, but although he wants to extract expensive ore, he does not want to risk it. In the conversation, Caroline meets him and tells them not to worry about it. Yesterday, she asked the bats to explore the mine, so now they know about all the dangers here. So if Suda wants to go down into the depths of the mine, the mice will be able to lead them. Suda realized that Carolina was simply amazing. Suddenly, Aphrodite started screaming from the side. The girl did not understand what the mice wanted from her. Suda asks if this was Caroline's doing. The girl says no, and she does not know why these mice decided to attack Aphrodite. After some time, Suda caught a mad puppet and realized that the deeper they go, the more mad puppets they encounter. He realizes that he has a good feeling. They reach some cave, and Suda realizes that it is very spacious here. Suddenly, Seal screamed Suda's name and said that she could smell precious metals behind this wall. It was different from all the ones before. Suda is surprised by this and says that maybe they can get a lot of money now. Aphrodite says that everyone should leave this opportunity to the great goddess. The girl swings her pickaxe and shouts about a divine attack. She falls, doubled over in pain. Caroline says that the blow didn't leave even a scratch on the wall. Carolina, approaching the wall, says that this is some very strong rock. She is afraid that pickaxes alone will not be enough here. Suda understands why the other adventurers have not touched this ore deposit. Then he makes a decision and takes out his ball capsule. He summons a goblin to leave the matter to him. Carolina screams when she sees the large golem. Suda replies that it is him. He got it yesterday as a result of puppet crossbreeding, so all the hard work can be entrusted to him. He orders the golem to destroy the wall, and it begins to carry out the order. Swinging, the golem hits the wall with its fist and makes a huge hole in it. Everyone watched in surprise. A secret passage with a staircase leading down opens before the heroes. Suda's group began to descend a long stone staircase. The young men wondered if the staircase was really that long. Seal happily said that the smell of ore was getting stronger, and she was sure that they would find it soon. Suda thought that it looked like this staircase was made a long, long time ago, but he wondered where it led. Suddenly, the young man sees piles of D-rank silver ore, C-rank gold ore, and B-rank platinum ore. They all screamed with delight when they saw the huge deposits of ore that had been collected. However, it was not simply stuck into the wall as before, but rather it was collected in boxes and wooden barrels. Seal picked up one of the many stones and decided to lick a piece. She happily turned around and said that this ore tasted amazing. It was real platinum ore. The young man was very surprised. He said that he couldn't believe it because there was so much ore in one place. Ciel said that it was also of very high quality. The girl thinks that all this ore can be sold for about 400 million coal. The young man was simply in an indescribable shock from this huge figure. He could not believe that very soon they would become rich. Suddenly, Aphrodite screamed nearby. The girl could not understand what it was. Coming up, Suda saw the skeleton of a man, which was neatly folded. Carolina replied that it seemed to her that the miners used this place as an ore storage facility or some kind of treasure trove. Suda asked the girl how she knew this, but Carolina replied that she didn't know, she just assumed. The girl continued by saying that she had noticed the age of this skeleton. She could say with certainty that it had been lying here for about 100 years. This mine was discovered relatively recently by adventurers, and it had previously been state property. Consequently, all the ore mined in the mine was sent to the state treasury, and this suggests that this miner could have hidden some of the ore here in order to resell it later. Suda said that it sounded quite logical, and in his mind he thought that it meant that this man was the only one who knew about the existence of this place. Each hid some of the mined ore here and most likely died in an accident. After that, the entrance here was blocked by stones and no one ever knew about this place. Aphrodite, leaning on the rocks, said that this man had managed to hide a lot of ore, but it was no longer useful to him and was of no use at all. Suddenly, the girl felt that the rock she had leaned on earlier began to move. Suddenly, a huge hand appeared from under the ground. Everyone watched in horror as a pile of rocks rose from the ground. It turned out to be a level 20 iron golem. The monster was a C-rank monster with unusually great physical strength. The iron golem viciously attacks. Suda didn't understand why this monster attacked them, but Carolina answered that it was probably because they woke it up. It seemed that it used this treasure room for its rest. Suda realized that they couldn't leave here empty-handed, so they would have to fight him. The young man takes out his ball capsule. The young man throws the capsule straight at the monster to be devoured. However, when the capsule hit the golem, for some reason it was not inside, even though the capsule had definitely hit the target. Suddenly, Suda had an idea. He couldn't catch it because of the dirt that covered the golem's entire body. Because of this dirt, the capsule couldn't touch his body. It seemed that this dirt had settled on him over the years he had spent here. He realized that they would hardly be able to knock it down even with a sword. While Suda was thinking about everything, the huge golem began to attack the young man, swinging its huge leg. Suddenly, the young man realized that he was being attacked and somehow managed to dodge a kick. Carolina ran to the owner, asking if he was okay. When the young man stood up, he realized that although the golem was slow, its blows were very powerful, and if he hesitated even for a second, Suda could definitely die. Suddenly, his thoughts are dispelled by the voice of Aphrodite, who hints that Suda is afraid. She stands in front of him and tells the young man to step aside and leave everything to the girl. He starts screaming, saying that the goddess has gone mad because it is too dangerous. The girl asks Sotou to remember that when she ended up on the ground, she lost all her magic skills, but her health and other stats did not change. Sotou agreed with the girl's words. Aphrodite said that if you think about it, the baby golem won't be able to harm her. The girl starts screaming at the golem to get out of here quickly. After these words, the golem started swinging. The next moment, he hit the girl and she flew to the side. After the blow, she stands up and says that to defeat the goddess of love and beauty, such a blow will not be enough. Sotou said that Aphrodite is a good girl. The girl, meanwhile, shouted to Caroline to deliver her blow. The girl acquired her demonic form, and she got wings and horns. Sotou was surprised by the image of Carolina and the fact that she could fly. The girl activates the magic and says how dare the monster attack her master. He uses his water magic and pours it on him from all sides. The young man notices that all the dirt that has accumulated on the golem over the years has begun to fall off. In an instant, the girl calls for her master to perform his blow. Sotou throws the ball capsule and thinks that now everything should work out. The ball capsule hits the golem right, and it starts to glow brightly, being sucked into the capsule. Taking the spherical capsule in his hands, the young man thought that this time the girls managed even without his help. The golem was in the capsule and didn't know where it was. Sotou thought that they managed to get by without any losses, and now he had an iron golem in his monster collection. Meanwhile, Caroline was scolding Aphrodite, and Seal was running to hug her. After some time, Soutou's group returned to the Adventurers Guild. They were met by Chloe. The girl said that she was very sorry, but she could not pay for the ore that Sotou brought. Sotou began to worry about why. He began to ask that maybe it was not of suitable quality or something else. The girl answered that it was not about that at all. Chloe screamed, saying that this ore was very expensive, and she wasn't sure she had enough money to buy this ore from Sotou. This is especially true for platinum ore, and if it puts it all on the market at once, it could cause a price collapse. In any case, it should be done gradually, so you need to be prepared. The young man understood what Chloe was talking about and thought that there was no need to make unnecessary fuss, because according to Seal, all this ore could be sold for about 400 million coal. The young man was upset that he couldn't get the money right away, but there was nothing he could do and he would have to wait. Leaving the guild, Aphrodite asked if Sotou had finished his business. After some time, Sotou said that in the end, they had to wait a week. Aphrodite suggested that they take the ore to another place. Sotou said that they had brought too much ore at once. Walking along the road, he says that he also thought about other shops, but at least in the guild they won't be cheated out of money, so it's more reliable. He then turns to Seal and says that it's okay that he gave all the ore they mined to the guild. Seal says that this ore wasn't suitable for making weapons and armor because the quality wouldn't be right. Sotou says he understands, but without weapons, it would be hard. After a while, Seal said that the inn was on the other side. Sotou said that he had one more small matter to attend to and asked if the girls would go with him for a while. After a while, the girls said that they had somehow gone far from the city. Seal asked Sotou what they were doing here. The young man said that he wanted to cross a couple of monsters. Ciel is surprised by this and asks if this is really possible. Carolina said that she understood everything and that it is better to breed monsters outside the city. Sotou said that the girl understood everything correctly. Sotou says that they managed to gather many monsters today. First, he wants to turn the mad puppets into golems, and then combine this golem with another golem. The boy summons an iron golem that the boy had caught not long ago. The iron golem was a C rank and had great physical strength. It was the result of crossing two golems, but if you cross an iron golem with an identical one, you can get a powerful monster. Aphrodite is curious, saying that when two golems are crossed, an iron golem is produced. She is very curious about what will happen when two iron golems are crossed. Sotou says he's also curious about it. He thinks that if you cross two iron golems, you can get a very strong monster, but what kind exactly? After some time, a B-rank Adamantite Golem appeared in front of the young man and his group. It had enormous physical strength and vitality. The golem had a skill, a punching fist. The information window also said that since this golem lives in remote mountains, it is one of the rarest types of golems. Seal looks at the monster with admiration and says that it is very cool. She asks Sotou what this monster is called. The boy answers that this monster is called an Adamantite Golem. It seems that this is the last stage of its evolution. Seal repeats the name of this golem and with huge bulging eyes says what it means. Judging by the name, this golem, or rather its entire body, consists of adamant ore. Suda says that most likely it is. The girl replies that her people have always dreamed of adamant ore. She asks Suda if he allows it, then can the girl make a weapon from this ore? Suda asks what happens. A girl can make a good weapon out of adamant ore. Seal says that's absolutely true. Suda asks Carolina if it would be possible to take some ore from the golem's body. The girl replies that she thinks it won't be a problem because golems have high regeneration. Even if they knock some ore off him, his body will soon recover, of course. Suda says he understands, then turns to Seal and says that in that case, he'll leave the adamant golem to Seal. He tells her to create weapons as much as she wants, within reason, of course. The girl, unable to bear it, throws herself on the young man's neck and thanks her. She also says that she is very glad to have met him. The young man says that the girl is exaggerating. Meanwhile, Caroline and Aphrodite looked at the young man's actions with hatred. Thus, unexpectedly for everyone, the young man managed to get the materials that Seal needed. The girl hugs the golem and says that she is very glad to meet him. The next day, Suda and Carolina were walking along the city streets. The girl asked if Suda was sure of his choice, since she didn't have to buy anything. The young man answered that he was absolutely sure. He adds that he remembers the girl asking him for some interesting book, so he hopes that she will find a book that she will like. He also notices her costume and says that she hasn't worn that maid costume in a long time. Caroline replies that they just weren't going to hunt monsters today, so she put it on. Carly asks if that's weird. The young man replies that it is not strange at all, because he thinks that this maid costume suits Caroline very well. He also says that he really likes this outfit. The girl blushed in surprise and staggered. Suta asks what happened to the girl. Carolina asks for forgiveness in embarrassment. It's just that the sudden compliments from the owner have turned her head a little. The young man understands her words. He thinks that Caroline often says things like that. He wonders if she's serious. He knows he saved her from death and all that, but sometimes she overdoes the gratitude. He folds his arms across his chest and asks Caroline if she sometimes takes his words too seriously. The girl doesn't understand what the young man means. Suta explains that, for example, if she tells her to show her clothes, there is a chance that she will show them to him. The girl takes the boy by the hand and says that if that is the case, then of course she will show her clothes if the owner wants it. She also says that she will do everything he asks. The boy starts screaming at what the girl is doing. Carolina sheepishly apologizes and asks the owner if he really didn't like it. The boy replies that he liked it, but it's all wrong, so he asks her not to do it again. He thinks that, of course, it was just that she showed him the clothes, but Caroline has been in love with a powerful demon for 300 years, so he can't help but feel that she's doing all this simply out of gratitude for saving him. The girl awkwardly clenched her fist and placed it on her chest, and then asked the owner what he was thinking about, because she did not understand him. After some time, Suda and Carolina come to the store. Suda sees a familiar male consultant there, who greets them and invites them to visit the official guild store. The young man remembers the face of the consultant from the furniture store. He asks, apologetically, if they have met before because he thinks he worked in a furniture store. The young man replies that the customers probably talked to his brother, who just happens to work in a furniture store. Suda realizes that these two consultants are twins. He remembers a case where the second consultant was very dishonest with his clients, so he would not want to trust someone like that. Suda changes the subject, asking if there is any rare spellbook in the shop. The male salesman asks again if the boy is interested in rare spellbooks. He apologizes, saying that he is very sorry, but they are very expensive, so he is afraid that the young man will not have enough money, so he does not see the point in showing him such rare books. The man starts to squint, and Suda agrees with his words. Suddenly, Carolina takes out a small dagger and runs straight to the man, telling him to watch his language. She threatens to tell him who the man thinks they are. Suda rushes to Carolina, shouting for her to calm down. The girl lets go of the man and apologizes to the boy. She says that the man was too rude to Suda, so she just wanted to cut out his tongue. Suda started screaming for the girl to quickly let go of the man. The man straightens his tie and then starts yelling at Suda and Carolina to get out of the store. He also yells at them not to see the spirit of the pair again. Suda takes Carolina and says they are very sorry. The young man says that there is nothing to be done. They go to the second largest bookstore in the city, but for some reason it is very small. The girl says that there is nothing wrong with this, because it is not the quantity of books that is important, but the quality. She hopes that the sellers here will be more polite. Suda says that they will hope so. He asks Carolina to let him know when she finds the book she likes. The girl agrees and thanks the young man. After some time, Caroline looked at one book after another. The girl says in her thoughts that these books written by people are not very interesting. Their style has not changed much in the last 100 years, so she thinks that it is a waste of time. Suda realizes that he can hear what Caroline is thinking. Although this usually requires a lot of concentration, sometimes strong thoughts seem to come through on their own. Suda understands that the girl is very upset that she did not find a good book. He tells Carolina that she needs to leave here because the girl does not like anything here. The girl is embarrassed and waves her hands, saying that everything is not like that at all. Suda says that there is no need to deny it because everything is visible on her. The girl agrees and says that she did not want to cause unnecessary difficulties for the owner. After a while, the girl says that, to tell the truth, her race is long-lived, so the books of humans, compared to the books of demons, are not very interesting. Suda says that then they will go to another city and look for the book there. Carolina begins to feel embarrassed, because all this is being done for her whim. Suda says that Carolina is talking nonsense. She has saved him and other girls from troubles many times before, so he asks her to let him repay her for it. The girl is very touched by these words. He falls unconscious. Suda catches her and asks what happened to the girl. Carolina replies that she was a little worried, because all she needs to be happy is her master's words. A few days later, Suda looks at his nearly empty money bag and thinks that the guild still hasn't appraised the ore, so it looks like he'll have to find a job. Entering the Adventurers Guild, the young man notices a large number of people at the notice board. The young men at the board say that another completely ridiculous quest has appeared. The second one tells the first one to forget about it, because it's impossible to kill a ghost, and how did they even come up with this idea? Suda looked at the task, where he had to pacify a ghost, and the reward was 10 million coal. The young man was surprised by such a task, because for pacifying a basilisk, they only gave 3 million coal. He turns to Chloe apologizing and says he's here about a ghost-slaying quest. He asks if she can tell him more about the quest. The girl says that a ghost has recently appeared in the cemetery, which people have already nicknamed a demon, and, apparently, it is very dangerous. They say that this ghost can summon and control the undead. Chloe says that as soon as they received the report of this ghost, they immediately announced a reward for it. Suda thanks Chloe for her help. After leaving the Adventurers Guild, he thinks that he will not take on this quest for any amount of money, but Aphrodite began to shout why the young man did not take this quest because they pay crazy money for it. Suda explains that, as he already said, the risk is too great and this quest is not worth it. Besides, they will earn a lot of money after the ore they extract is evaluated, so they need to know when to stop. Aphrodite says that Suda is probably right. The young man says that in this way they will earn extra money doing something simpler. Suddenly, Carolina comes up to him. The girl says seriously that since the boy doesn't want to take on this quest, can he entrust it to the girl? Suda asks if she's joking. Caroline says that since the demons once lost the war with humanity, they had to make rules to not bother people anymore. However, it seems that this ghost has decided to break them, so Carly wants to meet him and stop him. The young man says that since there are some rules between demons and humans, he doesn't mind. He himself thought that Carly constantly helps them out of trouble, so now it's his turn to help the girl. The young man then makes one condition, which is that he will go ghost hunting with her because he cannot allow her to go to such a dangerous place alone. The girl shyly thanks the owner and says that he makes her heart beat faster. The young man thinks that the girl has started up again. He will have to choose his words more carefully. Sometime later, at night, Suda's group is heading down the street. CL asks why they are going to the cemetery at night, to which the boy replies that he thinks all ghosts only become active at night, so CL shouldn't worry. He says that if the girl is afraid, she can go back to the inn. CL starts screaming, saying that she will never agree to this because she will go crazy while she is worried about the boy and the girls. Aphrodite giggles and says that CL is afraid of ghosts. The girl responds by asking if Aphrodite is afraid of them too. The girl replies that she is not afraid of ghosts. She winks and says that after all, she is a goddess. If a ghost appears before me, she will destroy it with sacred magic. Sheol clenches her fists and says, as expected of a great goddess, her eyes shining with joy. Aphrodite asks to leave the ghost to her. She also tells Sael not to be afraid, because she will protect her. Sael thanks the goddess and says that she has become calmer. Sotou notes that although Sail has cheered up, she did not notice that Aphrodite says this every time. 30 minutes later, Sotou thinks that he shouldn't have expected too much from Aphrodite and Seal. The girls huddled together. Aphrodite asked Seal to walk a little slower. The girl asked what Aphrodite was doing and why she was hiding behind her back. Aphrodite says that it's just ghosts that can attack Seal from behind, so she protects her. Suddenly, the girl grabs Sutou's hand and presses herself against him. She asks him not to go far away from her and Seal because suddenly something might happen. Sotou was embarrassed by this action. He shouts that he is not going anywhere, and, in general, if Aphrodite is so scared, then she should have stayed at the hotel. The girl panicked and said that Sotou shouldn't say such words, because she was very worried about him, so she wouldn't go to the hotel because she wasn't scared at all. Ciel, with tears in her eyes, said that she was scared to go to the hotel alone. Sotou realizes that there seems to be a reason why they don't want to go back. Carolina, who was watching all this, suddenly notices something to the side and tells the owner to be careful because there is something in the leaves of the tree. E-rank Hidodama appeared from the tree's crown. The monster had great magical power and fire magic skill. Aphrodite and Seal clung to each other and screamed in panic that the monster was a ghost. Aphrodite lost her mind, and Seal begged her to come to her senses. Sotou thought that he should have left them at the inn after all. Suddenly, Carolina shouted to Sotou that a monster was attacking them. The boy summons an Adamantite Golem and orders it to protect her. The Golem assumes a defensive stance. The next moment, little Hidodama tried to beat the Golem, but he couldn't do it. Sotou turned to Carolina and said that he understood that this little Hidodama could not do anything anymore and looked somehow weak. Carolina said that it was one of the ghost's minions. Apparently, he was given orders to attack anyone who came near his master. Sotou said that if that was the case, it meant that he was faithfully carrying out his orders, despite the enemy's superior strength. Sotou realizes that such a monster could be useful, so it needs to be captured in a capsule. In one moment, he realizes that if a monster protects its owner, then it turns out that someone in this world has the same abilities as him, and it turns out that he will steal a monster from someone, and for such things in games, they punish. He turns around and, thinking that this monster will now be his, throws a ball capsule at him. Apparently, in this world, you can safely take monsters from others. As a result, little Hidodama ends up in Suta's ball capsule. Sotou thinks that since he was able to subjugate someone else's monster, others can do the same, which means that his absolute domination skill is just a complete scam. Meanwhile, Carolina said that Sotou is simply incomparable. After some time, the young man caught the little fiery spirit again. He is happy because he has already managed to catch 4 of the ghost's minions, but where is the ghost itself? Sotou and Carly split up to speed up the search, but so far without success. Suddenly, Sotou hears someone giggling. Sotou assumes that it is the voice of a ghost. The monster says that the young man is the same person who is capturing his subordinates. Sotou turns his head but can't find anyone. Suddenly, someone tells the boy to look up. She's there. Sotou looks up and can't believe what he sees, and is a ghost. The ghost was a cute girl named Yuko. She was level 32 and her rank reached S rank. The girl had high vitality, physical strength, intelligence, and her highest characteristic was magical power. She had medium-level fire magic and high-level darkness magic. Sotou understands that this monster has high stats, and to be serious, this is his first dangerous opponent. Now it became clear why this girl has a big reward. Sotou realizes that it doesn't matter if he hits her with a capsule before the battle starts. A young man throws a ball capsule at a girl, but she doesn't even move. It's very strange. Suddenly, the capsule flies right through. Sotou is puzzled because this simply cannot be. He thinks that maybe it is impossible to catch creatures without a physical body in the capsule, but in that case, he will not be able to catch her in the capsule, and he does not have such a monster that could harm the ghost. It turns out that Sutou's group now has a very big problem in the form of this ghost. Meanwhile, the girl sighs and says that this is exactly what the boy calls an attack. She giggles and says that now it's time to really attack her. The young man panics. He thinks that if you look closely, the girl is quite cute. He understands that he needs to stall for time and not think about all this. He shouts for the ghost to wait a little and suggests that she sit down at the negotiating table and discuss everything. The girl calls Sotou a stupid adventurer and says that people like her have long since gotten rid of such unnecessary things as emotions, so now it is absolutely useless to beg her for mercy. She uses a fairly powerful spell and says goodbye to the young man, seeing him off with words. wishes to go to hell as soon as possible. Suta, looking at the spell, thinks that here it is, the end of his adventures. He closes his eyes and thinks that he has nothing to regret, since such a nice girl will kill him. Suddenly, someone pushes the young man away with their hands. He opens his eyes and sees Caroline in the guise of a vampire. Her stats and her level were also shown. It was clear that her parameters were much higher than the parameters of this ghost. The young man sees Caroline's radiance and realizes that her characteristics are now incomparably higher than before. She has unleashed her true power. He recalls that during the battle with the Iron Golem, her appearance also changed. It turns out that when Carolina starts fighting at full strength, she changes her form. In that case, Suta can now fully trust Carly. Carolina dispels the ghost's magic and says, addressing her by her name, Yuko, does she understand who she just raised her hand to? Suta notices that Caroline's clothes are in tatters, but she doesn't care right now. Suddenly, the young man notices the ghost's face. The girl was in complete shock and, calling Carolina the head maid, asked what she was doing there. Suta repeated the ghost's words about the head maid and thought that Caroline was most likely familiar with this ghost. It seemed that the ghost was saying that she had long ago gotten rid of her emotions, but now she was scared to death. Carolina began to say that Yuko had become quite bold. However, she did not think that she would live to see the day when Yuko decided to show her teeth. The girl screamed and waved her hands that everything was not as it seemed, and that she would never raise her hand against the head maid Carolina. Carolina places her hand on her hip and calls Yuko's name with a serious face, then orders her to quickly get down to the ground. In an instant, the ghost descends to the ground and falls at Carolina's feet, screaming for forgiveness. Suta realized that this girl obeys Carly. Carolina closes her eyes and says that Yuko is wrong and that she should apologize not to her, but to her owner, Suta. Yuko is shocked. She starts screaming about why Carolina obeys a human, because it is shameful for demons to serve these worthless people. The only one to whom concubines can be faithful is Lord Ibris. Carolina starts to get angry and says that if Yuko insults her master again, she will kill her. Yuko was so scared that she even jumped, and then she pressed her fingers into the ground and turned to Suta in confusion. The girl says that she did not know that the young man was traveling with Carolina, so she politely asks him to forgive her for her inappropriate behavior. She bows down and screams that she's really sorry. Suta holds out his palms and says that there's no need to apologize like that. Carolina tells Suta to forgive them for this misunderstanding, because it seems that her former colleague from her previous job caused him trouble. Suta smiles, but inside he is overcome with strange feelings, because he does not understand anything, and now he has a lot of questions. Yuko sat aside, very downcast. Carolina said that Yuko had a very nasty character, but could he leave her to Carolina? The girl said that she would try to explain to her that it was wrong to attack people. Suta said that he understood everything, but asked Carolina not to be too strict with Yuko. The girl thanked her master for his understanding. Initially, Suta wanted to subjugate the ghost, but since it was Carolina's friend, he couldn't do that, and if Carolina kept an eye on her, there wouldn't be any problems. Carolina calls Yuko and says that this time, Suta decided to forgive her, but only on the condition that she never harms people again. However, although Yuko was forgiven by the owner of Carolina, but not by Carolina herself, because the girl ruined Carolina's clothes that Suta gave her, so Yuko will have to be punished for this. Carolina becomes very frightening. The girl asks Yuko if she is ready for punishment. The girl is very scared. She asked Carolina not to do it, but the girl answered that it is very necessary. Carolina said that for her mistake, Yuko would get 100 spanks on her harmful bottom. If she tried to break free or interfere with Carolina, the girl would add the same amount more. Yuko began to cry. Carolina began to carry out the punishment. Suta thought that a ghost could not be physically harmed, so he did not understand how it worked at all. Suta looked at all this and thought that what Carolina was doing to this girl had raised a question in the young man. He was trying to understand what kind of character Carly really had. Thus, the problem was solved by itself. After some time, it turned out that the quest had failed. Aphrodite asks if maybe they shouldn't have let that ghost go. Suta says that they definitely won't see a reward from the guild now, but he's glad that everything ended well. Suddenly, Seal turns to Caroline and asks what her connection was with that ghost. Suta thanks Seal because he wanted to know about it too. Carolina says that Yuko was her colleague at her previous job. She and Yuko were maids, and they usually did cleaning, cooking, and so on. Aphrodite says that it is clear, but when Aphrodite said that Yuko was a demon in the cemetery, The goddess thought that she would be difficult to deal with, but in the end, she did not cause them any trouble. She asked if the lower demons were really that weak. Suda realized that it was not so. Even despite her status, Yuko's characteristics were very high, so Yuko could not be called weak in language. He understands that judging by the strength of Carolina and Yuko, the rest of the powerful demons' subordinates are clearly no worse than them. He understands that it is even scary to imagine what these subordinates can do. Suddenly, Aphrodite realizes that they have come to a familiar place. The girl asks if they were not here recently when they were breeding monsters. The young man says that he caught several more monsters today, so it is better to breed them right away before they return to the inn. Aphrodite understands that Suda is talking about those fire ghosts. She asks if they really live in the capsule too. The girl asks how she will live there now. Suda recalls that it seems that these ghosts could be crossed with wolves. He sees that if you cross a fire spirit with a wolf, you get a monster called Kitsunebi. The stats remain the same, but the skills increase. Suda decides to cross wolf and Hidodama. The result is a small fox. Everyone around was simply amazed by the cute monster. Suda understands that such a cute monster is obtained by crossing Hitodama with a wolf. Carolina says that Kitsunebi is a useful monster. She says that Kitsunebi can use 2 types of magic at once, which is very rare for lower races, and demons often use them as pets. Suta realizes that the monster is very cute and helpful. Ciel at this time stretched out her hands and said that the fox cub is very cute. She began to hug him and said that she wanted to take care of him herself, because in his company she could be in the capsule around the clock. Suda allows Ciel to do this, and the girl thanks her master for the opportunity to look after the little fox. The boy turns to Aphrodite and asks what's wrong with her. The girl starts crying and saying that she doesn't like him, because she's the cutest and most beautiful in the world. Suda realizes that the girl is jealous of this animal. He then says that they still have 3 wolves and 3 Hidodamas left, so he will make 3 more Kitsunebi. Suddenly, a system message appears in front of Suda, informing him that a rare crossbreeding has occurred. The next moment, a huge C-rank Ketamaru appeared in front of them. The monster had great vitality. It was a sage among all the monsters living in the forest, and its fur was a very valuable and rare material, so merchants were willing to buy it for a lot of money. Suta tried to figure out what kind of monster it was, because he fulfilled all the conditions for a Kitsunebi, but received a completely different monster. He remembers the warning before the crossing that he was allowed to perform a rare crossing, so the young man assumes that this is what happened. But the chance of this crossing was only 5%. Carolina says that this is the first time she has seen such a monster. Suda realized that even she doesn't know what kind of fluffy thing it is. The girl says that in all 300 years she has never seen such monsters. This is probably because it belongs to a very rare species that lives in remote places. Suda thinks that he is lucky to get such a rare monster, but is it worth using? It does not have magic skills like a Kitsunebi, and the amount of health, although high, is certainly not up to the level of an Adamantite Golem. Suddenly, Aphrodite approaches the monster. The girl touches his fur and says that it is simply amazing. She starts to touch the monster and says that it has very nice fur, which reminds her of a very cute animal. She asks Suda to order the monster to lie down on the ground. He does not understand what the girl is planning, but still asks the Katayama to lie down on the ground. The monster obediently flops down on its back on the ground. Aphrodite jumps on top and begins to bask a little in the monster's soft fur. Suddenly, she jumps up and says that this is exactly what she wanted. The monster is just perfect. She asks Suda to let her take care of this monster, because she can sleep on it for eternity. Suda asks if this means he fulfilled Aphrodite's wish, as she wanted a very large and soft bed. The girl replies that the fur and softness of this monster are no worse than the beds in heaven. Suda says that since the girl likes this monster, she can take it for herself. Suddenly, Aphrodite gets up from the monster and pounces on Suda with gratitude. Suda realizes that he is very lucky because now he has fully satisfied the request of the goddess Aphrodite. After a while, Suda looks at the capsule and realizes that Aphrodite doesn't even ask to leave the capsule anymore. Apparently, she really liked that monster, and now he can take up the entire bed on his own. Although, now he can't look at the beauty Aphrodite in the morning, but it's okay, because there were too many of them during the day in one bed, so acquiring a furry monster was worth it. Before going to bed, Suda decided to check his stats. Suddenly, he notices that a new skill has appeared, Psychological Manipulation. Psychological Manipulation is a B-rank skill. With this skill, the user can gain control over the body and mind of a subordinate monster. Sotou realized that he obtained this skill through rare crossbreeding, but the principle of its operation is still unclear. He thinks that if his body is left defenseless while he uses this skill, then using it would be extremely dangerous. However, now he's in the hotel and it is safe here, so he simply cannot help but try this skill. The system offers Sotou to choose a monster. The young man sees that he can even choose Aphrodite. He understands that in this case he can have fun in the role of Aphrodite as much as he wants. He pushes those thoughts aside and says he would never do that because he promised. Then he pushes those thoughts aside and thinks he will choose Aphrodite because it is not his fault that she was first on the list. When choosing Aphrodite, the system says that the skill level is too low, so he cannot manipulate this monster. Sotou realizes he has to choose another monster. He thinks he could choose the crazy mushroom and send spores to Aphrodite to make her lose control. He realizes it would be worth it. He lies down on his bed and thinks about how the new skill will work, so he decides to transfer his consciousness into the body of the crazy mushroom. Sotou moved into the body of the crazy mushroom and couldn't believe that it actually worked. He realized that he was inside a capsule. The only thing unusual for him was that everything around him seemed so big. Looking down at his limbs, he was surprised by the feeling of being inside a crazy mushroom. It turns out that the skill does work after all, and now he is inside the capsule. And if so, it's time to visit Seal, Caroline, and Aphrodite. Jumping straight towards the girls, the young man was interested in what they were doing inside the capsule, since it was impossible to see everything from the outside. The first one he meets is Aphrodite, who is sleeping as usual. Sotou notices how gorgeous she looks. He understands that there is nothing surprising about this, because the local monsters will not harm the girls, so Aphrodite is very relaxed. Sotou realizes that this is a great chance to make fun of Aphrodite, since she is in great shape. He knows it would be a sin not to take advantage of this while he's in the body of a crazy mushroom. In other words, he can play a prank on her without any risk. He jumps over the girl thinking that he cannot miss this chance. Suddenly, a soft monster wakes up and pushes away the crazy mushroom, and it flies away in an unknown direction. Lying on the grass, Sotou thought he was going to die. He apologizes to the crazy mushroom. Sotou realized that the monster had guessed the boy's plans, so it must be always on guard. He didn't even have time to understand what happened. Sotou gets up and thinks that since Aphrodite's monster is so vigilant, he will look for someone else. After some time, he meets Carolina and tries to understand what she is doing. Suddenly, the girl shouts at them not to slow down. She shouts at the goblins not to dare shirk, because as Soutou's right hand, she cannot allow his army to relax. Sotou realized that Carolina was training goblins in her free time, so the goblins' levels were increasing on their own even though he wasn't sending them into battle, because it was all thanks to Carolina. She kicks one goblin in the face, calling him by his name, Cora, and says that the order to rest has not yet been given. Sotou had a perfect idea. He wanted to make Carolina kick him, and in return he would be able to look at her clothes again. He realizes that now is the time to change control, so he becomes a goblin knight. Finding himself in the body of a goblin knight, Sotou does not understand why the armor and sword are insanely heavy, and he is also attacked by a premonition of danger. Suddenly, Caroline comes up to him and asks why he stopped. She says that the Goblin Knight will have to suffer for this, so from now on, she will increase the gravity for him from 5 to 10 times. Suddenly, Sotou realizes that Carolina has the ability to increase gravity. She uses this spell to increase the effectiveness of training, so it is no wonder that Sotou can't even stand up. He can't get up and thinks, isn't this too hard, or is he just a bad fighter? Carolina walked up and lifted her leg, asking how much longer the Goblin Knight would lie on the ground, and then stepped on the goblin's head. Sotou thought this action was awesome, because a beautiful maid girl stepped on him, and he could also see her clothes. Sotou realizes that he is in paradise. The girl started screaming that the goblin's gaze is scary. She wonders if he is really a goblin. His eyes scare her, and she sees a human gaze in them and feels the presence of magic. Sotou understands that the situation is very dangerous. He also understands that he can't stay in this body any longer. He thinks he'll get what he wants, so it's time to go all in. He concentrates and chooses the next monster. He chooses Kitsunebi. If you think about it, it's not a bad choice. Goblins are unlikely to attract sympathy from girls, but Kitsunebi are quite cute. Since he's so cute now, it would be a sin not to take advantage of it, so it's time to visit Ciel. After some time, Sotou reaches Ciel's house. Apparently, she was able to build it using new materials. This is quite impressive. He understands that to build even such a simple house, one must have good skills. He goes to the door and starts scratching at it with his paws. The girl opens the door and sees a kitsunebi. Seal named him Kotaro. Suta realized that Seal gave this fox a name. The young man did not understand why Seal seemed so attractive to him while in the capsule. His plan worked perfectly, and now he can admire this spectacle as much as he wants. Seal says that Kotaru's breathing is so heavy. She asks if the fox cub is not feeling well, so Seal picks him up and brings him into the house. Suta thinks that this is all just a perfect cover. He thinks that it's cool to be a kitsunebi. He thinks that he'll try something better, so he decides to jump right at Seal and play a prank on her. Suta and Seal are alone on the same bed. Suta, in the form of a cute fox, jumps right on Seal. The girl starts laughing loudly, because the fox's fur makes her very ticklish. Suta enjoys his time with Seal. The girl asks Kotaro to stop because she is very ticklish, but the fox can't stop, so he has to try everything. Suddenly, the fox crawls under the t-shirt and starts tickling there. Seal gets very ticklish from this. The girl turns red. Suta is surprised that Seal would blush from being tickled. He thinks that foxes are cute, but he didn't think it would go that far. Suddenly, Caroline comes into Seal's house. Seal gets very scared and screams. Caroline asks what happened to Seal and why she suddenly jumped up. Seal says that nothing like that happened. Then she panics and asks why Caroline suddenly decided to come and whether something happened or maybe there is some kind of assignment. Carolina says she didn't come here about work. She's actually worried about something. Suta thinks that Carolina is inopportune. If she suddenly suspects something again, he'll quickly change control. The girl says that, for some reason, she feels the presence of the owner here. The fox is shocked. The young man thinks that if something happens, he will immediately run away. Seal asks what Carolina means, because how can Suta get into the ball capsule? Carolina rubs her chin and says that in theory, it shouldn't be possible, but she feels his presence. The girl can feel and distinguish the souls of all creatures. Suta thinks that this is already dangerous, because Carolina can feel his soul in the fox. Seal asks if Suta is not a tamer who hunts monsters. Why would he trap himself in a capsule? Caroline says that is absolutely correct. Caroline asks if one of his skills allows him to travel into a capsule. Seal says she doesn't think that's possible. She thinks she will have to ask Suta directly about this the next time they meet. Carolina says she completely agrees with this. Suta sighs with relief and thinks that he is saved, but he was very close to failure. Carolina opens the door and apologizes for disturbing her and says that they will see each other tomorrow. The girl also says before leaving that she doesn't think it's worth using monsters to satisfy her interesting fantasies. This confuses Ciel immensely. After a while, Suta returns to his body. He looks at the capsule and thinks that as expected from Carolina. It was very dangerous, and Caroline is too perceptive a girl. He thinks he will have to refrain from using the skill. The next day, the young man came to the Adventurers Guild. Everyone was talking about him, saying that he was the adventurer who managed to destroy the recent ghost. Everyone said that he was still just a kid. Suta feels a strange atmosphere because of these rumors, especially since Caroline defeated the ghost, and he himself only just reported this to Chloe. He remembers telling the girl that he thought the ghost would not cause trouble for anyone anymore. Suddenly, someone approaches Suta. It turns out to be Guard Westberg. The man says that he has a little talk with Suta. Suta asks the man who he is. The man apologizes for his ignorance. He winks and introduces himself as Guard Westberg from the family of heroes. Suta is surprised that the boy is from a family of heroes. Guard says that 300 years ago, his ancestors performed great deeds in the war against the mighty demon Iberus. Srana knows them, the Westbergs, as a family of heroes. It is believed that each member of the Westberg family is reborn sooner or later, and each day they accumulate new strength so that one day they can defeat the mighty demon again. Suta asks what the young man wanted to talk to him about. Guard says he was impressed that he was able to defeat the ghost from the graveyard. He wanted to ask Suta for help in subduing the powerful demon. Suta starts shouting if it's true that a powerful demon has been reborn, to which Guard says that it's better not to talk about it here. He says that if he is interested, then tonight Suta can go to a bar in the north. There Guard will tell him everything. After some time, Aphrodite says that she is against pacification because she needs to accumulate even more strength. Suta didn't understand Aphrodite's reaction, because before she wanted to quickly finish with Iberus and return to the sky, and now he hears a very unexpected answer. He wonders if Ketamaru is so cozy that she has forgotten about paradise. It sounds quite plausible. Suda decides to ask what Seal thinks about this. The girl answers that if it is true, then she absolutely agrees that the demon needs to be dealt with, and the faster it is done, the fewer victims there will be. He decides to ask Caroline. The girl says that it is a waste of time because the powerful demon that the man talks about is a fake. Suda asked how the girl knew this, to which Carolina replied that she was too self-confident. What she really wanted to say was that she thought that the demon might not be real. She could go and listen and find out more. Suda says that then it is worth trying to just listen to him. If it is too risky, then it is possible to refuse. He asks if Aphrodite agrees to this. The girl awkwardly says that she agrees. Sometime later, already at night, Suda enters the bar that Guard had spoken of. The young man was sitting with a glass of wine and said that he knew Suda would come. He suggests getting straight to the point. Guard says there was a rumor that evil spirits had taken up residence in a mansion in the east, and whether Suda had heard about it. The young man replied that he had heard absolutely nothing about it. Guard continued by saying that there were rumors that several high-ranking adventurers had not returned from there, so he wanted to entrust this matter to Suda. Suda asked if the mighty demon himself would be present. In his head, he reasoned that he imagined that he must live somewhere in a high tower. Guard said that could be it too. The boy thought that was where he should have started. Then he heard Guard asking him if the 30 million coal reward would be enough for him. Suda immediately jumped up from his seat and shouted about 30 million coal. Guard replied that Suda had heard correctly when he said that he was a descendant of heroes, so such money was nothing to him. The young man thought that if he analyzed what he heard, it was unlikely that it was a powerful demon, but even for a fake they pay 30 million, it was very cool. He thought that the mine mission was also expensive, but not that much. Suda starts to glow and then says he'll do his best. Guard says that's really cool. After a while, they say goodbye with the words that they will fight together for peace on Earth and leave. Suddenly, a bat lands on Suda's shoulder, and then she flies away towards Guard. After a while, Guard was sitting on the couch, drinking beer, and saying that another fish had easily swallowed the bait. A bat was watching him. One man said, asking Guard if he really would throw the adventurer to fight monsters again, and when he was exhausted, the fisherman would take his own. Guard said that if a strong monster came along, then Suda could be abandoned and they could leave. Guard continued by saying that noble blood always attracts people, and if we also hint at a powerful demon and a hunt for monsters, then the state pays money to the gentleman heroes. He laughs and extols the business of taming a powerful demon. The other man laughs and says that no one will doubt the words of a noble hero. All this time, a bat has been listening. Then the mouse flies to Caroline and tells her everything she heard. The girl gets angry and says that it is very low to drag in the master's name for such low goals, so the offenders should not expect mercy. The next day, Suda, Aphrodite, Caroline, and Seal reach a huge mansion. Aphrodite asks if they're really going there, because what if the real Ibris is there? She also says that even a normal kid can beat up Suda, so maybe they should level up a little more. Seal says that she's scared. Suda thinks that he actually feels uneasy too, but it's unlikely that the real Ibris is here. Everyone is calmed down by Carolina, who asks everyone to calm down. The magic power coming from the mansion is definitely not from the master of the powerful demon. However, the great magic power still speaks of a high-ranking creature, but Suda will deal with him. Suda smiles awkwardly and thinks that Carolina, as always, overestimates his abilities, but since Carly is with them, he thinks that there is nothing to be afraid of. Of course, what will happen is unknown, but he must control himself. Sowat is the first to open the door of the mansion. He notices that although the mansion is old and dirty, it is still very nice. Carolina freezes in place. Suda asks what happened to her, but the girl immediately says that she has an excellent collection in front of her. Only the most first-class books are collected here. Suda asks if this will fulfill Carolina's wish for books from all times and nations. The girl agrees and says that she would like such a large collection in the capsule so that it would not be so boring there. Suda thinks that since these are the books that Carly asked for, they can try to take the bookcase into the capsule, but first they need to decide what to do with the residents of the mansion, because it is not yet clear whose property all this is. Suddenly, they hear Aphrodite's cry and immediately run to her aid. The girl screams that there are scary and vile monsters here. Next to her were level 15 and Class E ghouls with high survivability and physical strength, but absolutely no skills. Suda says that he will put them in the capsule right now, but Aphrodite flatly forbade it because they live in a capsule and she does not want to live with this rotten meat nearby. Suda agrees and summons several kitsunebi. The monsters use fire magic and burn the ghouls at once. Suta looks at the strange pile and says that now the rotten meat has a crispy crust. Ciel at that moment stroked the chanterelles, calling them good fellows. After a while, Carolina says that she is sure that the door is emitting the same magic that she spoke of earlier. Suda gritted his teeth and opened the door. Behind this door, Yuko was changing. When she saw Suda, the girl screamed. She asked what the boy was doing there and told him to get out of the room. Carolina also entered the room and asked what Yuko was doing there. The girl recognized her as the head maid. The girl asks what she is doing here and then says that this is her house and she changes in her room. Aphrodite then asks what they are going to do now. Ciel asks if they know Yuka. The boy realizes that he should start by asking Yuka. Sitting at the table, Yuko told me that she had gone to live in a city far to the east, but vile hunters had destroyed her house to pieces, so she found this estate. Its owner had apparently died of illness and the place was empty, so she decided to take it over and now lives here. Suta said that he thought Yuko lived in the cemetery. The girl replied that she went there to revive some new allies, since there are so many corpses there, which means so many excellent materials. She bites her nail and says that now adventurers and hunters have started to visit the mansion. The girl calls people disgusting. Carolina explains that the state gives generous monetary rewards to hunters. Suda understands that the hunter's goal is money. Guard tells him so too. The young man asks what Yuko does when someone comes to her house. He asks if she really kills them. Yuko replies that if it is a stranger, she does not even lay a finger on him, but simply asks him to leave the mansion. Of course, to make sure he doesn't come, she sets the ghouls on him so they can bite him a little. Suda thinks that's where to start. Suddenly, a group of people enters the room, and one of them says that he doesn't even know who lives here. That someone was Guard. The boy says he thought Suda would be here alone, but it's even more fun this way. Suda asks what Guard is doing here. The boy asks Suda if he hasn't figured it out yet. He says that Suda is just a pawn that he is sacrificing. He used the main character and sent him here to fight monsters. Guard says that he would actually like to kill everyone at once in the midst of battle, but since the enemy is this girl, there is no need to wait. He laughs and asks Suda's group what they will do to them, a hunter from the Rose Festival clan. Suta knows they're in deep trouble. He thought Guard's story was a bit odd, but he didn't think this guy could pull the wool over his eyes. Carolina gets angry and asks the owner to let her deal with this garbage. She says that 10 seconds will be enough for her to tear them up and get rid of the bodies. Suda shouts that this can't be done. He thinks that if Carolina is given free rein, she will definitely decide them, so they need to equalize their forces. The young man summons a goblin knight and orders him to attack. Guard says he thought it was just a rumor, and that Suda was actually a monster tamer. In fact, he thinks it's a disgusting profession. He says that Suda really thinks that one of his green knights will protect him from 10 of Garda's boys. Suda smirks and says that there was no talk of him only owning one goblin. At that moment, a small group of goblins with weapons appears in front of him. Guard wonders where so many goblins came from. Suda thought that even a person like Guard could be scared, since using 15 creatures would require about level 100. Guard shouts at Suda not to move. He tells his boys that they may be outnumbered, but some goblins are no match for them. Analyzing the current battle, Suda realizes that his goblin's armor is tempered in Seal's Forge, and the goblins themselves are tempered by Carolina's training, so the enemies cannot win. After some time, Guard's detachment was completely defeated. Suddenly, a large man addresses Guard, calling him Sir, and says that he will do everything and asks to entrust it to him. The man's name was Domin Baldox, and he was 35 years old. With one swing, he injures many goblins at once. Suda does not understand who this man is and why he is so strong. After some time, the goblin squad was defeated. Guard praised his servant Damon and said that he alone could be relied upon. Guard then orders Damon to rip Suda's head off. The man tells the protagonist that he will show him how to mess with Mr. Guard. Suda grabs the capsule and thinks that something stronger than the Goblin Knights is needed here, so he summons the werewolf Naya and orders it to attack. The monster repels Damon's attack. He says that the monster is not bad at all. Guard shouts that Suda even has a werewolf. The young man says that the werewolf is a worthy opponent and calls Guard a weakling. Suda approaches Guard in a frightening manner and says that he still has many comrades in stock, and until he releases them, he awaits his final words. Guard can't take it anymore and falls to the ground. He can't believe his eyes and asks Suda who he is. At this moment, Damon turns around and shouts to Mr. Guard that it is very dangerous here, so they need to run away from here. Suda wonders where they are going to run to, and then summons crazy mushrooms. In an instant, the mushrooms jump out and send a powder of disorder to everyone. In an instant, Guard coughs and cannot understand what is happening to him because his whole body begins to burn. He turns around and sees all of his clan members start declaring their love for each other and attacking each other. Guard starts yelling at them and doesn't understand what they're all doing. Guard orders Damon to separate all these people, but the man, approaching him from behind, blushes and says that he has always loved Guard and adores him with all his heart. He grabs him and says that when Guard puts on a brave face, it's just impossible to resist. Guard starts screaming about what Suda did to his clan and swears that he won't leave things like this. Suda folded his arms and thought that the Rose Festival had received its just punishment and their name now suited them perfectly. At that moment, Aphrodite whispered that Suda had put the mushrooms there on purpose with all this in mind. Ciel called him an animal. After a while, Yuko starts laughing and says that she hasn't laughed like that for a long time. She then asks Suda if he will kill those people, and then says that it was very spectacular for a normal person. Suda thanks her for the praise. Carolina grabs Yuko by the ear and says how dare she talk with her dirty mouth to her master. Yuko screamed and started apologizing to everyone. Suda turns to Yuko and says that it would probably be better for her to leave this mansion. Rumors of evil spirits appearing here have already spread far and wide, so stronger hunters may come here. The girl says that this is a stupid suggestion. She says that nothing will change, because for people like her, there is no peaceful place in this world where they would not hunt her. Suda thinks that Yuko looks different now than she did in the cemetery. Her features were somewhat blurry then. Perhaps she has two modes, like Carolina, ghost mode, and human mode. He thinks that his guess is correct. Suta says he knows a suitable quiet place for her. The girl wonders if this is true. Suda says that it is comfortable. The area is larger than the mansion and hunters will not get in. Yuko says that she is very interested, but she does not believe it. However, if it is true, she would like him to show her the place. Suda agrees with her and says that Yuko could turn away. The girl turns away. Aphrodite and Ciel begin to understand what is going on here. Then, in an instant, Suda touches Yuko with the ball capsule and it starts to glow. His theory is confirmed and Yuko can be touched in human mode. He holds the capsule and thinks that now the inhabitants can sleep peacefully and are completely safe. Yuko didn't understand where she was, and Suda thought about how he had caught a cute ghost girl today. A week later, Suda stood in front of the mansion where Yuko used to live. It turns out that he bought the house. One such mansion, as he heard, cost more than 5 billion coal, but rumors that monsters lived there did their job, and the price dropped significantly, so Suda was able to buy the house for about a tenth of the original amount. Suda realized that he had to pay almost the entire reward from the ore collection, but it was worth it, because he felt a little uneasy about the fact that all this time his monsters were sitting in the capsule. But now they will all be able to live in this huge house. He thinks that now Caroline has books, and he has completed all 3 of the girl's assignments. He hears a voice from the side saying that he should not hang around and that he should go help. It was Aphrodite. The girl said that this mansion was too big and they would never get it in order. The girl did not understand why a goddess should do cleaning at all. Yuko said that she understood Aphrodite very well, because why should she, a demon, listen to some human? Suda watched all these arguments in the midst of general cleaning. Carolina turned to Yuko and asked her what she said about her master Suta. The girl, in a panic, said that she had nothing of the sort. Aphrodite and the foxes swept the floors, the goblin knights with Ciel and Suda washed the floors, and a huge golem repaired the building from the outside. After a while, the mansion simply sparkled with cleanliness. After some time, Suda gave each girl a separate room, and what they asked for, he transferred to the capsule so he can finally sleep in silence. However, as it turned out, he had miscalculated, and now he, Ciel, Caroline, and Aphrodite were sleeping on the big bed. He fell asleep thinking that he had bought a house, equipped a capsule, but it was as if nothing had changed. The next morning, Suta opened his eyes to the sound of someone stomping loudly. Aphrodite burst into the room and said that something bad had happened and that some man had grabbed Caroline. Suda went down to the exit and saw Carolina, and behind her an unknown person. The girl apologized to the owner and said that she was very inattentive. The person behind her turned out to be a girl. She said that she had heard that demons lived in this mansion, but it seemed that people had also come down to her. Seal also went down to the exit and saw the whole situation. The stranger was asking why a person cooperates with evil spirits. She also continued to hold the blade near Carolina's neck. Ciel asked if this girl was the teacher and why she asked to come directly to her, saying that she recognized the voice of her teacher. Suda wondered if this was the teacher who had disappeared without a trace, having gone to fight the demons 2 years ago. The girl pulled down her hood and asked how Ciel had ended up here. Her name was Rika Garbanento. She was from a family of dwarves, and her age was 23. After some time, Rika was told all the details of what had happened earlier. The girl turned to Suda and said that she should have thanked him first. She sincerely thanks Ciel for saving her. She also says that she was not in town at the time and would never have made it in time. Sauda says that there is no need to apologize because Ciel has saved him more than once. Rika says that she understood that Caroline was taken captive by the Bakraji household. This means that she was also saved by Suta. Suda replies that everything is absolutely correct, so Carolina is not such an evil demon as the girl thought. Rika says that Bakraji's company has a really loud, but not the best fame, and Suta's courage is worthy of praise. The young man sighs and thinks that everything is fine because Rika understood him. The girl says that unfortunately, there are no good demons in this world, and so she attacks Carolina, but she deftly dodges. Suda asks what the girl is doing, but Rika replies that Suda is simply bewitched by this demon, since it is under their control. Suda tries to prove that this is not the case, but Carolina replies that he should not try to convince her otherwise, because it is pointless to say anything to people like her. During the battle, Rika notices that Carolina is very fast, and Carly, in turn, says that Rika hits just like a human. Carolina then says that just out of respect for Ricky's weapon, she will release a little of her power. Suda realized that things were really bad, because Carolina was now in vampire mode. The girl made a strong swing and hit Rika right in the body. Ciel rushes to his teacher, and Carolina tells her to be calm because they were not killed, so the girl will wake up soon. After a while, Rika actually woke up. She was sitting on the bed and laughing awkwardly because the demon had defeated her and then pitied her. She felt humiliated. Suda asked why Rika hated demons so much. The girl replied that it happened once near St. Bell. They came across the former commander of the demon army, Rumil. There were 6 people in Rika's party, all of whom were A-rank adventurers. She remembers how their squad was completely defeated with a huge loss in strength. She says that not only this demon, but all this devilry from the demon army was scattered around the world and they do not give life to people anywhere. Rika says that this is why, for the sake of her comrades, she decided to join the hunting party and destroy evil spirits so that no monster would trample this land. Everyone was immersed in Ricky's story. After the story, Rika gets up from her bed and bows, saying that if she had come to tell him about it, her confidence would have been shaken, so she left the city without saying a word. She approaches Ciel and asks her for forgiveness. The girl begins to cry and says that she is very happy that her teacher is alive. Rika thanks her for this. She turns to Suda and says that she heard that demon activity in this area has increased dramatically, so she came here. She was confused by this mansion and then by the casino built on the site of the Bakraji company. Suda was surprised that they had built a casino there. Rika said that they give out huge loans there and that there were many visitors inside who later turned into hostages. Rumors also hinted at a connection with demons. The girl says that they have planted spies, but contact with them has already been lost, so perhaps they are no longer alive. Suda interrupts her and asks if he can take over the case, which Rika is very surprised by. The girl says that they will be in danger there, but the young man replies that everything is fine because the girl herself saw what only Carolina is capable of. He takes the capsule and says that he has other strong allies, so they will help Ricky's comrades and prove to her that good demons exist. After some time, Suda and his group arrived at their destination, the casino. The young man thinks that he should have quietly gone to this place once for reconnaissance, but he wonders why Aphrodite followed him. The girl says that it is very dangerous to let Suda go there alone, because she will not forgive him if he squanders all their hard-earned money. Suda hears the whispers of strangers nearby. One man says that the place is rumored to be doing well lately. Another man says that the previous management of Bakraji's company has disappeared without a trace, and the new management is more enterprising. Suda thinks that this is probably the same disappearance that he is involved in. After that, he himself was curious about how things are going for this company there. From what Ricky tells, there's a lot of money flowing through this place. He decides to see what's going on and goes inside. Inside the building, everything was sparkling and glittering, and beautiful waitresses were serving champagne. People were drinking expensive wine and playing at their tables. Suda sees a huge number of girls in bunny costumes, but suddenly he notices signs on their necks and wonders what they are. A man approaches them and, calling them dear guests, asks if this is their first time in their establishment. His name was Los Torrizalti and he was 84 years old. The man said that the girls had price tags on their necks. Suda is surprised by the man's age. He says that all the female staff of their establishment are a commodity. If the client wins, he will be able to buy the girl he likes for a special currency. Suda asks about the man. He says he didn't have time to introduce himself. His name is Lost and he is the chief commissioner of the Bakra firm and, accordingly, the owner of the casino. Suda realized that this was the new top of the company from the rumors that had spread. Compared to the usual hostage sale, the casino with winning stimulates human passion and brings in more income. The man leaves and says that if they have any questions, they can safely call him. Aphrodite whispers to Suda that Lost is not really human. Suda understands that age confirms Aphrodite's words, but apparently the demon's piercing eye does not work in human mode, otherwise he would have felt Aphrodite's aura, because the same thing happened to Carolina. So the demon is really involved in this place. Aphrodite says that first of all they should find out more about the enemy here. Suda understands that the girl just wanted to play in this place. 2 hours later, Suda was sitting on the couch, his face gone. It turned out he had lost a lot of money. The game started off fun. He had a series of easy wins, and then when he started to raise the stakes, the cards just didn't go. Suddenly, Aphrodite runs up to him and pounces on him with apologies. The girl lost. Suda says that she lost too and tries to calm her down. He said that everything was fine. He and Aphrodite had spent 500,000 call each, so they had only spent their planned expenses for this month. There was still over $1 million in the capsule, and they would apologize to the girls together a little later. Aphrodite said that there was nothing stored in the capsule because she had lost all the money that was in the capsule. Suda was stunned. They were now bankrupt. Aphrodite tried to understand why Suda had brought her to this corner and what he wanted to do. The girl even suggested that the young man wanted to do something bad, but Suda asked her not to think too much. He asked if the girl had really lost all her money, to which Aphrodite replied that she had first lost 500,000 and then decided to win it back. Suda asked if Aphrodite had noticed anything strange, like small bets that initially won, and then, as the bet increased, the girl began to lose more often. The girl thought about it and said that there was something like that. Suda said that he felt like it wasn't them who lost, that they were just tricked. Aphrodite was very surprised by this. Suda said that Ricky said that the customers were saddled with debts, then taken hostage, the debts were forged, and they were turned into goods. In short, they got the money dirty, and the men were sold as cheap labor. The young man takes the capsule and says that he wants to expose their machinations. He asks Aphrodite to watch over his body, and if anything happens, they should call him through the skill, Contact. The young man understands that if he crawls through the ventilation, then the young man will probably be able to crawl out on the other side of the wall, and in that case, he will need the Kitsunebi form. Aphrodite asks Suda to stop because she doesn't understand what he's up to. Suda remembers that he didn't tell Aphrodite that his new skill could allow her to move into the bodies of other monsters. In this case, he would move into the body of a small Kitsunebi. He then moves into the fox's body and asks Aphrodite to catch him. The girl catches the soulless body and then sees the Kitsunebi running into the ventilation. Suda thought that it was quite difficult to actually expose the enemy's plan. Suddenly, he heard laughter. There were 2 men in the room. Odie said he was going to wet himself laughing. The other said he couldn't possibly be talking about that beautiful blonde. Judging by her appearance, she was an aristocrat. Suda realized that, according to the description, the men were talking about Aphrodite. They continued to discuss her and said that it was very interesting why only stupid customers came to their establishment who did not follow the game at all and did not notice anything. One says that they mixed the suits of the cards with illusion magic. This information surprises Suda. They gave away all the secrets very quickly. Illusion magic is a type of dark magic. Suddenly, the casino owner enters the room. He asks why the men aren't working. Lost asks, "What's wrong with that blonde?" He gave them orders to squeeze every last drop out of her. Another man says that he easily extorted 10 million coal from her, all thanks to the illusion magic that Mr. Lost taught him. He says that the blonde ran away with tears in her eyes, but suddenly, Lost hits him in the face with all his strength. He says that he has repeated many times that they should add debt to stupid people in the game and put them on the counter. Lost continues and says that a girl with such an appearance could be taught to dance and sold to aristocrats, and they could then earn at least 30 million coal. The man says he can fix everything, but in response he gets a kick from Lost, who tells him how. Lost starts yelling at the man that he is incredibly stupid because he lost a lot of money, so he is just worthless trash. When the man passes out, Lost leaves, saying that this is why he hates dealing with people. Suda understands that humans are absolute trash to him. This means that the demon Lost is watching all of this here. He understands that it is because of these types of good demons like Carolina that they think badly. He wants to smash Lost's business to pieces. A few days later, Carolina says that her intuition tells her that there are representatives of her kind inside this building. She also adds that the aura she senses seems to be that the owner is a worthless lower demon, so he won't smell it from there. Suda thinks that, as always, there is no one more reliable than Carolina. He reflects that he sold some rare items from the mansion and collected 20 million coal. That's all the money they have now. The game the young man has decided to challenge is poker, where he has already lost so much. He is asked how much he is willing to bet. Suda puts all his chips down and says he's ready to bet everything he has. Everyone turned to look at Suda because he had bet 200 chips. No one understood why someone would bet 20 million. The man says that this step cannot be undone. Is the boy sure of his action? Suda says that he is absolutely sure. The man says that they start the game then. Carolina was next to Suda. Suda thinks he was preparing for the worst, but it seems the man just thought Suda was stupid. He notices the man has a very confident face, believing in his sleight of hand and magic. Suda picks up the cards and realizes that he was dealt a bad hand because he didn't even get a pair. The man asks if Suda needs to redeal the cards. The boy agrees. With a new retake, he gets nothing again. Of course, there is a possibility of such a fallout, but they lost so much just yesterday, so it is no longer a simple coincidence. Plus, it's all written on the dealer's face. Suda gives Carly a command, and she uses magic to change the cards in Suda's hands. Suda reveals his cards and says he has all the trumps and a royal straight flush. Everyone in the area was simply shocked by this reveal. A royal straight flush is 100 times the bet, which means the winnings are 20 billion calls. The dealer says that this simply could not happen. Suda understands that if the man decided to deceive them with magic, then it would be okay if they won with the same magic, but a little more powerful. Suda's team has a magician, a professional. The dealer starts accusing Suda of being a cheater and asks him how he did it. Suda asks why he is a cheater. Did the man really know the cards he had in his hand? Suddenly, Lost bursts into the conversation, asking why there is such a noise. The dealer turns to the gentleman and apologizes. Lost looks at the table where the high combination of cards is lying. He smiles and calls Suda an honored guest and then asks him to come to the office because he wants to give him advice for the future as a guest who has won a large sum. He asks Carolina to wait in the hall. When they arrived at Lost's office, he closed the door and said that he heard that the young man had won a large sum. He congratulated the young man. Suda thanked him for his congratulations. Lost suddenly pulls a knife out from under his shirt and tells Suda to keep his winnings. Suda dodges the knife attack and asks what Lost is up to. The man says they don't have money for vile people like Suda. He tells him it would have been better for him to just lose silently and everything would have been fine, but that just added extra work for Lost. Suda realizes that he has burned down his entire office. Lost orders his subordinates to kill Suda. At this moment, the young man takes out his ball capsule. He summons the Goblin Knights and orders them to attack. Lost was very surprised because a normal person has so many goblins. The goblins quickly deal with Lost's subordinates. The man calls them absolutely useless. He says he didn't want to show himself like that, but it can't be helped. He takes on his true form. His level was 23. He had basic fire, wind, water magic, and a medium level of darkness.